After Papa's totally unnecessary joke about taking me to war, he left with a smirk on his face. A smirk. Seriously? Sometimes I really wonder. Is this man really my papa? I mean, first he took me to an execution ground when I was just 3 months old. 3. Then he casually kills people in front of me like he's just flicking lint off his clothes. Now he's out here cracking jokes like, "What if I took you to war?" Sir, please, with your straight face, how is anyone supposed to tell whether you're joking or actually preparing me to become the youngest general in history? I honestly wonder what kind of parenting guidebook he's been reading. How to Raise a Villainous Baby 101. Murder, mayhem, and milk bottles. And just like that, my life with Papa kept moving. Time passed just as fast and confusing as ever, and now, drumroll please, I am 3 years old. Wah! I can't believe I'm growing so fast, I said, standing in front of the mirror and turning this way and that. My golden curls had grown longer and my cheeks had gotten rounder. My red eyes sparkled with concern. But why do I feel like I've gained so much weight? I mumbled, gently poking my belly. Because you eat like a pig. A familiar deep voice came from behind. I turned around slowly and there he was. Lounging like a king on the couch in my playroom, one hand behind his head, the other lazily flipping through some reports. Say, look who's talking. The man who eats 2 entire steaks in one meal and drinks wine like it's apple juice. And he's lying there doing absolutely nothing. Does he have no work today? I raised an eyebrow at him. You're the one who keeps giving me dessert. He didn't even blink. That's because you cry if I don't. Touché. He smirked. He smirked. I waddled over and poked his leg. Why are you not working? I am working. Watching over a lazy kid. Do you know how hard that job is? I blinked at him, utterly dumbfounded. What kind of excuse was that? Then I smirked. But I trailed off sweetly, tilting my head. He looked at me, eyes narrowing suspiciously. I clasped my hands together, putting on the most innocent puppy-eyed look I could manage. I got all that from you, Papa. He froze. For a moment he just sat there staring at me like I'd sprouted wings. Then he stood up with a sigh. Looks like my daughter has started to talk back. I folded my arms and lifted my chin, smirking proudly. I even learned that from you. Papa went silent again. Hee. How does it feel now, Papa? Getting outsassed by a 3-year-old? Just then, knock knock, a familiar voice came through the door. Your Majesty, the Black Knights have arrived. It was Theon. Papa nodded once, then turned to me. Without warning, he scooped me up like a bag of rice over his shoulder. Say, this again. You'd think being royalty came with a little more dignity, but nope. Papa still carried me around like I was his favorite sack of potatoes. So, nothing changed except my age. As we walked, I rested my chin on his back and mumbled, so, Sir Ravik is finally back, huh? 8 months. It's been more than 8 whole months since Sir Ravik went to war. And now he's returned, after conquering an entire kingdom. I heard he fought like some mad dog. I mean, I get that wars are brutal and all, but I didn't know knightly conduct included canine behavior. Papa walked down the corridor like usual, unbothered, powerful, scary, and I just dangled over his shoulder like a plush toy. Papa, are we going to greet them outside? I mumbled, watching the grand hallway pass by upside down. Yes, he replied simply. They are someone who shed blood for us. So they need respect. Right. They're particularly the heroes of this empire. The ones who bled for Ilarion, who kept it safe while the rest of us slept soundly in silk sheets. They deserved this kind of welcome. I only met Sir Ravik once and honestly, I'm a bit excited. I mean, who wouldn't be? He was scary in that cool way. The kind of scary that made you want to grow up faster just so you could be scary too. And then we reached the Imperial grounds. The massive gates had been opened, sunlight pouring in like golden water. The Black Knight troops marched in, heads high, steps in sync, armor shining despite the grime. There were people lined up along the stone path, nobles and commoners alike, clapping, cheering, and throwing petals. Long live Ilarion. Glory to the Black Knights. I wriggled slightly in Papa's grip, trying to see better. Papa, let me down, I whispered. No. You'll get trampled. But even from here I could spot him. Sir Ravik Blackthorn. Towering over everyone even without a horse. Long black coat whipping in the wind, armor scratched but solid. His face was still the same, sharp jawline, cold blue eyes, and that shiny silver hair that made him look like he'd stepped out of a romance war novel. He spotted us almost immediately. Then he knelt. One knee to the ground, one fist to his chest. The entire unit followed his movement like a wave of black steel. "Your Majesty," he said loudly. "We return victorious." Papa didn't speak at first. He just stood there staring like he always does, like he's measuring people's souls or something. Then he stepped forward and raised a hand, his voice calm and commanding. "Welcome back, Black Knights. You've done well." The cheers grew louder, more petals flew in the air, and Sir Ravik stood again, his gaze briefly flicking to me. I waved, grinning. He blinked then nodded. Oh, he nodded. I thought he would ignore me. Throne room. The throne room felt heavier than usual today. Maybe it was the lingering scent of blood and battlefield still clinging to the air, or maybe it was just the weight of victory pressing down on everyone's shoulders. Papa sat on the throne like a true monarch, cold, regal, untouchable. Me? Well, I was settled quite comfortably on his lap, legs dangling off the side and a grape in my hand. Priorities. The massive doors creaked open and Sir Ravik entered, flanked by silence and the echo of his boots on marble. He stopped before the steps to the throne and knelt. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice like gravel soaked in frost. Papa nodded, his expression unreadable as always. "Congratulations. You did a good job." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Ravik replied, voice low and steely. "As you ordered, I have beheaded every last one of them. The Tavrothian lords, the commanding officers and the royal family. The traitorous bloodline no longer exists." Papa's expression didn't change, calm but somehow colder. "Good. They dared to raise their blades against my people. I trust you made an example of what happens when they do." Sir Ravik nodded. "I made sure they understood that the Empire does not tolerate challenges." Papa leaned back slightly, fingers tapping the gilded armrest. "And the city?" "Subdued. There were minor skirmishes, but they surrendered once their leadership fell. We've installed temporary governance under Lord Callan as per your prior decree." "Good," Papa said again simply. "You've done well. You've upheld the Illyrian Empire's name." Sir Ravik gave a small bow. "I only did what was expected of me." "You've done more than that," Papa replied. "Rest for now. When the new vassal state is fully stabilized, I'll have further orders." "Yes, Your Majesty." And then, it happened. Sir Ravik's gaze slid toward me. I blinked back at him, grape still half in my mouth. Our eyes locked awkwardly. What do I do? Not salute? Instead, I just smiled and gave a little wave again. He stared a moment longer, then unexpectedly smiled this time. It was brief. Barely there. But it was a smile. Then he bowed to both of us and turned, leaving the throne room in silence, the hem of his cloak trailing behind him like spilled ink. I stared at his back until the doors shut, then tilted my head and looked up at Papa. "Papa," he hummed, looking down at me. "Is Sir Ravik your friend too?" He nodded, already rising from the throne with me still comfortably in tow. "That's right. We learned the sword together. He was with me and Regis since we were kids." "Oh." I nodded slowly, like I understood, even though part of me was still imagining tiny serious-faced versions of them swinging wooden swords around and falling over dramatically. "So, they were like best friends, huh? And now they were ruling this whole empire together. Sir Ravik, the cold, loyal sword. Grand Duke Regis, the silent, terrifying genius. And Papa, well, Papa was Papa. Scary emperor, doting, weird, dad and possible war criminal. What a trio." Suddenly something stirred inside me. Maybe it was the way Papa stood there, cold and untouchable, his presence swallowing the room. Maybe it was the idea of growing up to be just like him. A ruler, feared and respected. Maybe, if I grow up right, I can be scary and cool too. Just like Papa. Just, maybe without the bloodshed part. I was munching on cookies and flipping through a picture book, clearly enjoying the moment like a retired noble on vacation. "Princess, would you like to go for a walk?" Nanny said gently. I looked up, crumbs on my cheek. "The weather is nice today," she added with a smile. I stood up dramatically. "Really?" Nanny nodded, and then Morella popped into the room like a cheerful puppy. "How about we play ball, my princess?" I chuckled. Morella was always excited whenever games were involved. "All right, let's have fun." I raised both my hands up in excitement. "At the palace garden." "Come, let's go." I tugged on Osric's hand like a determined merchant trying to sell a slightly broken magic lamp. Osric, who was now 9 and somehow built like a baby bear, didn't budge. Let's play, Osric. But he didn't move an inch. Seriously? What does he eat? His feet stayed planted, facing the palace's east wing. Lavi. I can't. I have sword lessons with Master Leto. He said if I'm late again he'll make me polish armor for a week. Before I could even respond with a dramatic gasp or a bribe of cookies, he dashed off like a soldier fleeing laundry duty. I stood there. Betrayed. Abandoned. Alone in the battlefield of fun. Humph. I puffed my cheeks and glared down at the ball in my arms. Fine then. I'll play without you. I yelled after him. I bet this is how it starts. First he abandons me at 9. Next he abandons me in the future like in the novel. Nanny patted my head gently. It's okay, princess. We can play with you. I nodded with the dignity of a tiny queen and dropped the ball like I was starting a war. I gave it a noble kick toward Morella. Of course, that traitor ball bounced, spun midair like it had a mind of its own, and veered off in the opposite direction. What did I ever do to deserve this betrayal? I stood still, wind dramatically blowing through my hair like I was in some tragic opera. What luck, I muttered. Morella panicked. It's okay, princess, I'll get the ball. No. I raised a hand like a knight swearing an oath. I shall retrieve the ball myself, since I am the one who kicked it. I waddled off like a determined duck, muttering under my breath. Where did that traitorous ball go? Ugh, I'm never trusting rubber again. And then I spotted it. Near a tree. Aha. Found you. I lunged, but the ball slipped away again. Seriously? Are you enchanted or just rude? I chased after it, my short legs moving as fast as they could. But before I could catch it, a tall shadow stretched across the sunlight like a dramatic curtain drop. The ball rolled to a stop beside a pair of very serious, very polished dark boots. I looked up. Wait. Ravik. He was holding the ball now, his gloved hand making it look like a squishy grape in a bear's paw. Here you go, princess, he said, his voice deep and calm. I blinked at him. It was the first time seeing him this close. His silver armor gleamed, very knightly, very intimidating, but his face wasn't scary or cold. Just quiet. Kind even. I smiled. Thank you. He blinked, then nodded, returning a tiny, shy smile. A very rare species of smile. He then turned to leave. Wait. I reached out without thinking, grabbing the edge of his cloak. It was warm and heavy and felt like safety. He paused, turned around, and knelt down to my level like a proper storybook hero. What is it, princess? Wow, this man is so handsome. Would you like to play with me? I asked. He tilted his head slightly, raising a brow. Play. With the ball, I said quickly, holding it up with both hands like an offering. Just for a little bit. I'm bored alone. Ravik stared at me quiet. Was he going to say no too? All right, he said at last with a single nod. I blinked. Really? Yes, princess. He stood tall like a tower and I grinned so wide my cheeks hurt. Yay. And then we walked to where Nanny and Morella were. Oh, Lord Ravik? Morella gasped and both Nanny and Morella bowed, saying, We greet Lord Ravik. He nodded and then, All right, let's play, I said with lots of excitement. Without waiting, I ran a few steps ahead and placed the ball down. Okay, you have to stand over there. Oh, more to the left. Oh no, that's too much. Back a little. Yes. There. He followed all my instructions with that same quiet expression, never questioning me once. When he was finally in position, I gave the ball a gentle kick. It rolled toward him. He stopped it with his foot. How you kick it back? Ravik hesitated. But I don't want to hurt you by accident, princess. I put my fists on my hips. I'm not that small. You are, he said, the corner of his mouth twitching. But I'll be careful. His kick was so soft the ball barely made it halfway before stopping. Humph. I stomped over, picked it up and trotted back. You kick like a baby bunny. There was a beat of silence, and then he chuckled. Oh, look at that, the scary knight laughed. Freely. Just like Papa. Dangerous and ruthless from the outside, but extra soft on the inside. Like a lava cake. With armor. And from that day on, Ravik started playing with me every day. At first it was just ball kicking. He always stood exactly where I told him, even if it meant being half blinded by the sun. Soon we moved on from kicking the ball. Let's play tag, I announced one morning, pointing dramatically like a queen declaring war. Tag, Ravik echoed like I'd just asked him to do a pirouette in armor. Yes, you have to catch me. But you can't run too fast, okay? That's cheating. He hesitated and smiled. All right, princess. Ready, set, go. I bolted off like a wobbly duck on a sugar high, squealing and laughing, looking back every 5 seconds to make sure he was chasing me. Princess, be careful, you might fall. And I nearly did. But he caught me effortlessly, lifting me like I weighed less than a feather. I stared up at him. Are you made of stone or clouds? I whispered. He blinked. Armor. I giggled. And then there was the time I tried to teach him how to skip. Yes, like this. I jumped with both feet, arms flailing like a confused bird. How you try. He stared at me. Princess, it's not really my thing to play. I squinted at him, unamused. He sighed softly, then gave a small nod. All right, I will do. And he did. Without arguing. That was his charm. Quiet, serious, but so very there. Whenever I fell, Ravik was there to pick me up. If I got even the tiniest scrape, he looked ready to storm the heavens. When the ball rolled too far, he'd retrieve it in 5 seconds flat and return it like a noble offering. And then today, while I was still deciding what to play, he arrived. Ravik, let's play. He smiled gently. Sure, princess. But first, His Majesty has summoned you to the meeting room. Why there? All right, I sighed dramatically. Let's go. Meeting room. I walked with Ravik toward the meeting room, dragging my feet just a little. Seriously, why does Papa always call me there? Can't we meet in a normal place? Like the garden? The guards straightened and opened the grand doors with a heavy creak. I peeked in, then waddled inside with Ravik behind me. We wish to receive relief from your kingdom, Your Majesty, a man said, bowing deeply in front of Papa. He looked different. Taller hat, layers of shiny cloth, and something sparkly on his shoes. Definitely not from here. Papa sat on the throne and just nodded his head and hummed. He glanced sideways at Theon and said, Theon, send whatever the kingdom of Valmyra needs. Valmyra. Oh right. I think that kingdom's been having problems. There was a grain shortage. Maybe he's from there? Papa didn't even blink much. I toddled closer and reached out to him. Without a word, Papa scooped me up and settled me on his lap like I was some treasured artifact. Comfortable seat, 10 out of 10 would sit again. My eyes met with the man from Valmyra, and to my surprise he bowed deeply and smiled. I greet the next ruler of the Illyrian Empire, Princess Lavinia, he said politely. Then, he had the audacity to reach for my hand to kiss it. It was just a normal royal greeting. I'd seen it in books. Morella said it was tradition. Like proper royal etiquette. A normal thing. Nothing weird. Except Papa's arms snapped around me so fast I actually squeaked. 1 second the man was leaning in, and the next I was halfway buried in Papa's chest like a squirrel hiding from a hawk. I blinked, confused. Then I looked up, and oh no. Papa's eyes were sharp. Cold. Dangerous. And Ravik? Ravik was standing behind the throne, hand on his sword, glaring like the man was attempting an assassination, not greeting. The poor ambassador from Valmyra was frozen. Probably regretting his whole life. I swear I saw sweat. Thankfully, Theon, bless him, stepped forward with the speed of a man who wanted to live. Let's discuss what we can assist with, he said, quickly taking out the poor man before he got turned into a pancake. Silence. He scowled. How can you let other men touch your hand like that? Papa, I said very seriously. That's the way people greet princesses. Even we do that. There was a brief silence and he was furious. Then, I should ban that kind of greeting in this empire. What? I gasped loudly. What? I gasped loudly. Papa, you can't just ban greetings. I flailed my arms like I was trying to smack the nonsense out of the air. That's not how etiquette works. Papa didn't even blink. I'm the emperor. That doesn't mean you can change history. It means I can change the future, he said ominously like he was announcing a new era of tyranny. And we're starting with that barbaric lip-to-hand nonsense. I stared at him. This man. This delusional, overly dramatic man. How can he say things like that with the poise of a philosopher and the logic of a watermelon? I spun toward Ravik, my last desperate hope. Ravik, please, say something. He didn't even hesitate. I agree with His Majesty, my princess. I blinked. Once, twice, thrice. Are these people okay? Did someone put something weird in their tea this morning? That's when the door opened and Theon strolled in holding a scroll, completely unaware he was walking into diplomatic insanity. Theon, I cried, reaching toward him like a damsel spotting a lifeboat made of sarcasm and functioning brain cells. He blinked. What's wrong, princess? Papa's gone mad. He's malfunctioning. He's completely lost his brain. Theon's eyes darted toward Papa, then back to me. He smiled with the weariness of a man who had seen things. I know that, princess. Papa glared at him like he was deciding between execution or exile. Theon coughed into his fist. I mean, yes. But what specifically this time? I jabbed a finger at Papa like I was presenting Exhibit A in a courtroom drama. He wants to ban the hand-kissing greeting tradition. Theon just stared. Hi. Buffering. And then, what? Your Majesty, have you completely lost it? Finally. Validation. Please tell me this is a joke, Theon added, glancing around like hidden gestures would pop out with April Fool's signs. Papa, face as blank and serious as an imperial edict, said, it's an outdated custom. Unnecessary. Too much physical contact. It's a sign of respect. Theon argued. It's part of diplomacy. It's older than this castle. It's a threat, Papa snapped. They're touching her. I threw my hands up. It's a hand, not a national treasure. It is a national treasure, he thundered, eyes blazing with righteous fury. I gasped. Papa. You can't say things like that in public. Do you want people to abduct me? Ravik, still looking like a particularly serious gargoyle, muttered, anyone who attempts to abduct the princess will cease to exist. Wow. I can't believe this is the energy I am surrounded by. Theon sighed like he aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Should I throw myself out the window now or after the council hears about this? We'll jump together, Theon. Theon groaned. Your Majesty, with all due respect, you cannot change centuries of tradition just because you feel threatened by handshakes. What's next? Are you going to change marriage customs too? One day the princess will have to get married. Are you going to change that too? Yes. Good point, Theon. I turned to look at Papa. But instead of calming him down, Papa froze. Then he narrowed his eyes. Then mumbled darkly, marriage? Oh no. Oh no no no. Don't tell me you're saying my daughter has to get married? One day. I mean, eventually? Not now, of course. I'm like a toddler. But in the future I have to. Yes, Your Majesty. Theon said cautiously. In like 24 years? When our princess is ready. When the stars align and world peace is achieved. She has to, Your Majesty. His expression darkened like a thundercloud. To whom? Who dares think they're worthy? Papa, no. Absolutely not. She's not getting married. And how dare you say such vile things in front of me? Papa's voice dropped into that deadly emperor tone, low, cold, and full of incoming policy changes. Then, with the calm of a man who had completely lost his mind, he added, I'll just change the law. Make it illegal to propose to her. What the, Papa? I yelped like he'd just declared war on romance itself. Forget the hand-kissing ban. That was ridiculous, yes, but this was a crime against my entire future. He was trying to make me single forever. What did love ever do to him? Thankfully, Theon, our last line of defense against royal madness, stepped in and somehow managed to reason with him. Probably with the same tone one uses to talk a nobleman down from fencing a tree. All right, I get it, Papa grumbled, rubbing his temple like we were the ones giving him a headache. Stop eating my brain. And just like that, the first crisis of the day was averted. But me. I was spiraling. Because while the ancient etiquette survived, I was sitting there thinking, what about my love life? Papa had declared emotional martial law. While I should have been worrying about people kissing my hand, I was now genuinely panicking about never getting to hold anyone's hand. Ever. For the rest of my life. My romance life wasn't just on pause. It had been arrested, thrown in prison, and sentenced without trial. Papa was going to legally enforce my eternal singlehood. And the scariest part? He could actually do it. Papa, the most powerful man in the empire, was ready to draft a law that would outlaw my romantic future. Meanwhile, I was sitting here wondering if I'd ever even get to wink at someone without triggering a national emergency. Just as I was slipping deeper into my tragic daydream of eternal singleness, a sharp knock echoed at the doors. A royal guard stepped in, bowing deeply. "Your Majesty, there's something unusual happening in the treasure room." The treasure room? What now? Papa frowned. "What do you mean by unusual?" The guard hesitated, clearly unsure how to phrase it without sounding like a lunatic. "Something glowing inside, Your Majesty." Papa's brows furrowed. Theon's eyes snapped to attention and he immediately looked alarmed. Without a word, we all began walking, well, striding with purpose, toward the treasure room. It was tucked away in one of the palace's inner wings, highly secured, and strictly off-limits to everyone except the royal family and Theon, since he was the one who kept track of everything from priceless artifacts to the number of dessert spoons. As the heavy doors creaked open, a soft shimmer of golden light spilled from the darkened room. We all froze. "Whoa," I breathed, taking a cautious step forward. In the center of the room, resting on a velvet pedestal, was the golden egg, the one Grand Duke Regis had gifted me on my first birthday. I had almost forgotten about it in the whirlwind of chaos. But now, it was cracking and glowing. I stepped forward in pure, sparkly-eyed excitement, only for Papa to stretch out an arm like a one-man barrier. "Lavinia, stay back." "But Papa, it's mine." I huffed, trying to peek around him. He narrowed his eyes at the egg like it owed him money. "We don't know what's inside. It might attack you." I blinked at him. He sounds like he's going to hatch a chicken assassin. And then a sliver of golden shell peeled away. Frick. Another piece fell, revealing something shimmery beneath. We all leaned forward in unison, collectively holding our breath as the final crack split the egg completely. A blinding light flared and then something moved inside. Something small. Something fuzzy. I squinted, blinking away the dazzle until my eyes adjusted. And there it was. Sitting in the center of the broken shell, blinking up at us with huge, sparkly amber eyes. "A kitten," I gasped. "Not a dragon. Not a griffin. Not a winged beast of legend. Just a normal kitten. Tiny. Round. Fluffy. With ears a little too big and fur that shimmered faintly under the light. It tilted its head at me, let out a tiny squeaky meow, and then its tail glowed. Wait, that was not a normal kitten who just wanders around the palace. Its fur sparkled like starlight, and faint stripes, more like ancient runes than mere markings, ran along its legs and back. Its little paws shimmered with warmth every time they touched the velvet below, as if glowing with a soft, magical heat. The tail, long and elegant, gave off a gentle, ethereal glow, curling like wisps of smoke in the air. Looked more like a baby magical tiger than anything else. But, whatever it was so cute. Theon, who had been staring in stunned silence, finally blinked and exclaimed, "It's a magical beast, Your Majesty. They're supposed to be extinct." I blinked. "I see. Is that why it came out of an egg?" And just as I processed this, the kitten let out another loud meow, wobbling out of the shell. It was adorable, but then tragedy struck. The little creature tripped over its own oversized paw and face planted right into the velvet. I screamed, instinctively leaping forward. "Precious." Before anyone could stop me, I scooped it up into my arms, cradling it like the delicate treasure it was. Fluffy. Warm. Slightly glowy. My heart combusted. "I'm naming it Marshmallow," I declared with absolute authority, as though the name had been destined the moment I saw it. After Marshmallow hatched out of that divine egg, Peace packed its bags and left the Illyrian Empire. I was just starting to enjoy my days, napping under the sun, eating sweets and cuddling with my ridiculously soft and slightly clingy baby beast, when the palace exploded into chaos. Nobles poured in like rats after cheese, tripping over themselves just to catch a glimpse of Marshmallow. But this time it wasn't just nobles. The Holy Temple came too. With their golden robes, glowing relics and holy expressions, they looked like they were auditioning for a painting. I thought they were here to take Marshmallow away and say something like, "A toddler princess cannot raise a divine beast without a license." But no. They bowed. To Marshmallow. I'm not joking. They bowed so low I thought one of them would snap in half. Apparently my marshmallow isn't just an adorable kitty with food crumbs in his fur and a squeaky little roar. According to the high priest, Marshmallow is the last of the Rakshar. So, what is a Rakshar? Well, according to the Holy Temple's ancient records, the Rakshar was born from the last breath of a dying sun during a celestial war between forces of light and darkness. It wasn't forged by magic but by fate itself. Its fur shines like stardust, so bright it can blind a man, and its red eyes glow like embers that never go out. No wings, no horns, no fiery breath. Just raw, divine presence. Long ago during the age of the first emperor, my legendary ancestor, the Rakshar appeared in a forgotten jungle. Wounded, cornered, dying. The first emperor saved it during one of his quests for justice. And from that moment on the Rakshar never left his side. It became his guardian, his shadow, and the symbol of Valerian's strength. That's why our royal crest shows a roaring beast. It's not a lion or dragon. It's Rakshar, the empire's guardian and the first emperor's blessing. And just like that, after the first emperor's death, the Rakshar vanished. No one ever saw it again. Till now. Everyone says Marshmallow is the return of the divine beast. That the first king has blessed the empire once more. A sign of divine favor. A symbol that Valerian is about to enter a new golden age. Which is a lot of pressure to put on someone who still pees on my blankets, chews on his own tail, and sleeps all day. I can't believe this lazy kitty is a legend. I was busy eating my cookies, lying on the floor in my nursery, eyes fixed on the ceiling like it owed me something. Marshmallow was lying beside me too. Sleeping. His chubby belly rising and falling like a tiny pillow made of clouds and fur. They both look alike, Morella whispered to Nanny, but I could clearly hear it. Now I could feel Nanny's eyes on me. Then she chuckled and said, "You know, there's a saying, a pet always reflects their owner." But what does that mean? Are they calling me lazy too? Rude. Whatever. I'm bored. I rolled over, stuffed the last cookie into my mouth and scooped up Marshmallow like a warm living plush toy. He let out a tiny whimper, peep, and buried his face in my arm. "All right," I announced, dusting crumbs off my dress. "Time to meet Papa." And just like that I marched off, carrying Marshmallow like a squishy royal accessory on a mission, heading straight toward Papa's office. His tail dangled from my arm, swaying with each determined step. "Seriously? You feel heavy, Marsher," I muttered. He gave a lazy little meow in response. Useless. Behind me, Morella and Nanny chuckled like I was some kind of walking comedy show. When I reached Papa's office, the guards outside straightened up and bowed. "I'm sorry, Princess," one of them said, "but His Majesty is not present at the office." Huh. I tilted my head. "Then where is he?" "He is at the training ground, my princess." "I see. Thank you." I squinted at the sun for dramatic effect, because that's what nobles do when they're about to do something important. Adjusted Marshmallow in my arms like a loaf of very judgmental bread and stomped off again. To the training ground then. Imperial Palace, training ground. The sun blazed above as I made my grand arrival at the training ground, dragging my feet slightly because Marshmallow was definitely gaining weight from all the stolen snacks. The clang of swords, grunts of effort, and the occasional yelp of pain filled the air. Knights moved in sharp lines, their armor gleaming with sweat and regret. It smelled like metal and despair. As soon as I stepped into view, I noticed Ravik. "Hi, Ravik." I waved cheerfully. Ravik immediately abandoned whatever knightly thing he was doing and walked toward me, his boots clinking against the stone. He bowed low. "Princess Lavinia, what are you doing here?" "I came to see Papa." I beamed like I was announcing the arrival of sunshine and sprinkles. Then I blinked, looked around, and added, "Where is he?" And then, "Your Majesty, spare us." Someone screamed. My eyes snapped toward the center of the ground, and there he was. Emperor Cassius Devereaux. My terrifying, beautiful, overachieving father. He stood in the arena like a war god descending to punish the unworthy. His black coat was tossed aside, his white shirt untucked and half unbuttoned, his crimson eyes glowing with murderous glee. Muscles flexed under the sunlight as he pointed his sword at a poor knight who looked ready to faint. Around him lay broken men. Not broken but definitely bruised and questioning their life decisions. "Next." Papa thundered. "I'm testing every last one of you today. No exceptions. Knights winced. A few even stepped back. The tension was thick enough to slice with a butter knife. Ravik shifted beside me, nervous. Probably thought I'd burst into tears or beg him to make Papa stop. Instead, I clutched Marshmallow tighter, sparkles in my eyes, and shouted, "Whoa! Papa looks so sexy." Dead silence. Utter silence. The wind stopped. The sun blinked. Even the birds abandoned the scene out of second-hand embarrassment. A knight dropped his helmet. Another stumbled into a dummy. Ravik inhaled like he was being strangled by air. Marshmallow blinked twice, then buried his face in my chest with a faint peep, probably trying to disassociate. And in the middle of it all, Papa froze. Mid-swing. Sword still raised, expression unreadable, as if time had glitched around him. Then, after a beat, he let out the deepest, most exhausted sigh I had ever heard from a man who'd conquered empires. "Ravik," he said flatly, lowering his sword. "Handle them." Ravik, looking like a man who had just been granted a pardon from execution, scrambled off to wrangle the poor knights. Papa turned to me, crimson eyes locked onto my tiny, delighted form. He bent down, grabbed Marshmallow by the scruff with one hand, Marsher let out a sleepy meep, and gently placed him on the grass. Then with the other hand he lifted me, like a sack of flour. I dangled in the air, dress swinging, giggling like a little maniac. "You," he muttered, squinting up at me, "do you even realize what you just said?" I beamed. "Yes. Papa, you looked so sexy. Like the knights in Morella's romance novels. But better because you're real." Morella gasped and was embarrassed. "I told you not to read aloud in front of her," Nanny whispered. "I am sorry," Morella panicked. Meanwhile, Papa closed his eyes briefly, like he was mentally contacting the gods for strength. "Where in the world did you even learn that word?" But I wasn't listening. "You know, Papa, if more girls saw you like that, they'd faint on the spot and write you love poems." He exhaled sharply and set me down. One of the servants approached and respectfully handed me a cloth to wipe His Majesty's sweat. Very formal. Very ceremonial. Instead of doing that, I began circling Papa with the energy of a caffeinated fangirl. "Papa, you know what? You should get married," I said, completely serious. "You're not that old and you're very handsome. Even Marsher agrees, don't you, Marsher?" Marsher blinked from the ground and flopped over like a fat potato. "Lavinia, shut up. But I'm just saying. I don't mind a stepmother. She just has to be beautiful. Like really beautiful. And nice. And..." He suddenly scooped me back into his arms, face unreadable again, and began walking briskly away from the training ground. "Papa." I poked his cheek. I said I'm fine with it. Then I paused. Wait a minute. My eyes widened in horror as a very important memory popped into my head. "Oh no. I'm sorry, Papa. I forgot." He glanced down, curious. "Forgot what?" I clapped both hands over my mouth dramatically. "That you and Theon are in love." Silence. Papa stopped walking. Dead. His tracks. His grip tightened just slightly, just enough to know the man was fighting for composure. Behind us, Morella gasped like I had declared war. Nanny made a choked sound that was suspiciously close to a laugh. And then, from the far end of the hallway came a thunderous, panicked yell. "Princess!" I turned my head innocently. There stood Theon. Face red. Eyes wide. Hair slightly mussed like he had run into a wall. Twice. He looked like a man who had just been accused of kissing the emperor in front of the entire court. Cassius still hadn't moved. "Huh. What happened?" I asked innocently. And then, from the far end of the hallway came a thunderous, panicked yell. "Princess!" I turned my head innocently. There stood Theon. Face red. Eyes wide. Hair slightly mussed like he had run into a wall. Twice. Maybe 3 times. He looked like a man who had just been accused of kissing the emperor in front of the entire court. Papa still hadn't moved. His arms around me were like iron. His face. Absolutely unreadable. I blinked up at him, then turned to Theon. "Huh. What happened?" The papers in Theon's hands slipped through his fingers and scattered like sad little confessions across the floor. He looked at me like I had summoned Satan himself. "Princess," he gasped, rushing toward us like his life depended on it. "What did you just say?" I tilted my head, blinking innocently. "Huh. What did I say?" That me and His Majesty. He looked like he was about to pass out. Or combust. Possibly both. You can't just say things like that. I frowned. But, you and Papa are in love, right? Isn't that why Papa never married? The air went still. Deadly still. Nanny. Morella. Thing. Even Papa. Everyone froze like the palace had been hit with a Medusa curse. The princess. Nanny gasped in horror, clutching her chest like she'd just witnessed a murder. It's not like that. What? I furrowed. But Theon and Papa are always together. It's not like that, princess. Theon yelled too, hands flailing as if trying to erase my words from the air. We're not. That's not. I serve His Majesty. I squinted at him, dead serious. But Theon, you look at him like you'd die for him. Princess. Theon choked. You can't just say things like that. Huh. Was I wrong? Why are they behaving like this? Did I misunderstand them? I blinked again, still confused. But I saw many times. Papa stands naked when he's alone. Lavinia. Papa raised his voice. I looked at him and then he sighed like he was trying very, very hard to hold on to his last shred of dignity. It's not what you think. But Papa, I started again. It's not what you think, he said louder this time, like he was stamping a royal decree on the conversation. The hallway fell into stunned silence. Except for Marshmallow, who was licking his paw like we weren't all in the middle of a social meltdown. Papa exhaled sharply and muttered, Is that really? How do you see me? I gave him a sympathetic look. But Papa, loving another man isn't a crime. You can love who you want. Lavinia, he said firmly, face twitching. Enough. I shut my mouth immediately, sensing I might be one sentence away from being grounded until I turned 10. Then his eyes slowly slid toward Morella. And you? Stop reading those ridiculous romance novels out loud where she can hear them. If I see another one, I'll rip them apart page by page. Morella hiccuped in fear and dropped into a bow. Why's Your Majesty? I apologize. I looked back at Papa. So, you and Theon are not? No, princess, we are not. Theon wailed, nearly on his knees. Then, eyes still glistening with panic, he added, Even if I did like men, I would never fall for His Majesty. Silence. Papa turned his head slowly. Very slowly. What's wrong with me? He asked, voice eerily calm. Theon's face drained of all color. Oh, that's not what I meant. I just meant. You're amazing. Beautiful even. But terrifying. So terrifying. Like a majestic beast. With abs. Pause. Even Marshmallow stopped licking. Papa stared at him. I whispered, So, is that a maybe? Theon looked like he was going to faint. Honestly, if someone had handed him a fainting couch, he would have collapsed onto it dramatically. Papa, on the other hand, simply let out a long, weary sigh. The kind that carried the weight of an entire empire. And one overly curious toddler. It was the sigh of a man who deeply regretted every life decision that had led him to this exact hallway. Take the princess to her chambers, he said. Papa, wait. Before she destroys any more reputations, he added without even looking at me. Then he scooped me up and deposited me into Nanny's arms like a cursed relic he couldn't wait to be rid of. As I blinked up at him, he turned toward Theon and said with royal authority, You, come with me. We need to. He stopped. Pissed. Annoyed. He blinked. Then he frowned. Deeply. Don't show me your face for a week. Theon looked personally offended. I wasn't planning to. I don't want to see your face either. Papa didn't even respond. He just turned and started walking away, muttering under his breath, Looks like I need a drink. Morella and Nanny watched him disappear down the corridor in stunned silence. Theon slumped against the wall like his soul had left his body. I watched Papa's tall figure retreating into the distance, his steps heavy, one hand running through his hair in visible stress. Did I go too far? Maybe I really misunderstood them. Nanny, I tugged at her sleeve, voice soft. Is Papa angry? Nanny blinked down at me, her expression melting into the kind of face grown-ups make when they don't know whether to laugh or cry. Then with a gentle pat on my head she said, Don't worry, princess. His Majesty can't stay angry at you for long. I hummed quietly, but my eyes were still stuck on the hallway. He did look angry. Like very angry. The kind of angry that makes people pack their bags and flee to the neighboring kingdom. After that, Papa vanished like a ghost with a grudge. Not at afternoon lunch. Not at evening snacks. And not even in the garden where he always walked with me, even if it was just for 5 minutes. I stood by the window of my nursery, hands behind my back like a tiny philosopher, watching the empty courtyard below. All right, I get it. Papa is very angry, I mumbled to myself, the wind gently blowing my bangs like I was the heroine in a tragic drama. But what could I do? Papa and Thean looked so close, like those best friends to lovers in a BL novel. I might be a little corrupted. But whatever, as a good daughter it's my duty to win Papa back. Marshmallow was sprawled on the floor, batting a little red ball around like he didn't have a care in the world. I turned to him seriously. Marsher. I called. He meowed. Papa is angry. We need to convince him. He tilted his head as if to say, and whose fault is that? But what should I do? How do I convince him? I muttered, pacing back and forth in deep toddler despair. Just then the door opened and Nanny entered, her voice cheerful. Snack time, princess. Fresh cookies, sliced peaches and warm milk, just how you like it. I turned, eyes locking onto the plate of cookies like it was the answer to life's greatest question. And that's when it hit me. The idea. My little hand shot into the air like a royal decree. That's it. Let's bake cookies. Nanny blinked. Pardon. I need to bake apology cookies. I declared, chest puffed out with purpose. But princess, I already... Nanny started, confused. No, Nanny. I said firmly, face serious, heart determined. I'm going to bake cookies for Papa. Apology cookies. The strongest magic known to mankind. Marshmallow meowed in support. I'll make them myself, I said, fists on my hips. With love. So Papa will forgive me. Nanny blinked and then gasped in horror. Princess. She said carefully, the royal kitchens are not a playground. They have hot ovens, sharp knives and many breakable things. It's not exactly a place for a small, enthusiastic tornado. I gasped. Nanny, are you calling me a tornado? I'm calling you 3 years old, she said, holding up 3 fingers. And your version of helping usually ends with something on fire. I won't set anything on fire. I said with utmost toddler sincerity. I'll be careful, I promise. I'll make cookies with love and extra sugar. Papa will forgive me. I know it. It looked like Nanny wouldn't agree, so desperate measures had to be taken. Then I clung to her skirt dramatically and looked up at her with the saddest eyes I could summon. Nanny, please. Papa is angry. I need to apologize. Please, Nanny looked like she was having a very intense internal battle. Finally, she sighed and muttered, We'll ask the head chef for permission. He gave me a look. And I'll supervise everything. You're not going near the oven. I will bake them myself. Deal. I cried, spinning dramatically like I had just won a war. Marsher, you're head of taste testing. Marshmallow meowed like a true soldier and pounced on the tray of snacks with purpose. And just like that, Operation Cookie Peace Treaty had officially begun. So, the Operation Cookie Peace Treaty has officially begun as we reached the royal kitchen. It was my first time stepping foot inside, and when I entered, everyone gasped. Dramatic. Just how I like it. Nanny whispered something to the head chef, probably asking for permission. He chuckled and nodded like he approved of my sacred mission. The head chef personally cleared a whole table just for me so I wouldn't have any problems. He even stood right beside me like a royal guard of dough and butter, to make sure I didn't burn the empire down or lose a finger. As for the kitchen staff, our princess. Look at her, she's so tiny. Look at those red eyes, like a doll. She's cuter than the sugar sculptures we make for banquets. They were standing in rows like an audience, watching me with eyes so curious it felt like I was filming an episode of MasterChef, Princess Edition. Except in this version the judge is also the contestant. And chaos is guaranteed. Anyway, focus. A peacemaking, cookie baking, Papa's scary right now at feed him mission had begun. As a good daughter I couldn't let Papa stay grumpy. He needed sugar. Because right now, he was all vinegar. So, let's begin. Stage 1. Chaos and flour snowstorms. It's not like I've never baked cookies before. I did in my last life. But it turns out my hands are too short in this body, and flour is much trickier than I remembered. And I can still hear those staff's whispers. I heard she made His Majesty smile every time. Smile. Like, actually smiled. Wait, really? Shush. She's picking up the flour. Look, she's going to bake. With her own hands? Isn't that dangerous? Should we step in? Toei. This is history in the making. I was supposed to scoop 1 cup. The scoop was too small, so I may have tilted the whole sack. Accidentally. A snowstorm of white exploded everywhere. I emerged with white hair and white lashes. Like a tiny sugar ghost. Even Marshmallow coughed, flour all over his fur and tail. Princess. Nanny gasped, rushing to wipe my face with a cloth. Meanwhile, the staff were trying very hard not to laugh. Stage 2 apocalypse. Eggs are slippery, okay? I tried to crack one like the head chef showed me. A gentle tap. Then a firmer tap. Then, frick. On the floor. The egg cried yellow tears. I stared at it, betrayed. Why are you so dramatic? I whispered. The head chef handed me another. Try again, my princess. The second one made it to the bowl. With shell shards, and I called it extra crunchy. Now the staff were laughing a little too hard. My princess is so cute. I can't with her. Meanwhile, Nanny was in the corner whispering prayers to the kitchen gods. Stage 3, sugar sabotage. The head chef tried to measure the sugar carefully. Added a bit more. And then a bit more. Because sugar here in this world isn't sweet enough and Papa likes sweet things. Right? The head chef smiled awkwardly and nervously. Princess, we do not need to send His Majesty into a sugar coma, yes. I tilted my head. But peace comes from sweetness, doesn't it? The staff gasped like I just spoke divine truth. Yes, princess. Princess is always right. Add more sugar, princess. Meanwhile, Nanny muttered something suspiciously close to, I need a vacation. Stage 4, shaping tragedies. Last. The cookie shapes. There were stars, bears, hearts. And some suspicious blob that might have been a sheep? Look. I said proudly. It's a night bear. The bear's head fell off the moment I moved it. Oh no, I whispered. He died again. Stage 5, into the fire. The head chef slid the tray into the fire-heated brick oven, and then he smiled gently. The cookies will be ready shortly, my princess. I nodded, heart racing. Please don't burn. Please don't explode. We waited. We all waited eagerly. The smell filled the kitchen, sweet, buttery, almost victorious. My heart swelled. After what felt like forever, the head chef pulled the tray out. He was smiling so kindly, so warmly, I knew deep down. They must be beautiful. Then he placed the cookies into a gorgeous little basket, wrapped with a ribbon, and handed it to me. Here you go, princess. Your gift for His Majesty. I took it with a big bright smile. Until I looked inside. Why do they look like their souls were sucked out? I whispered. Cookies were tragic. Lopsided. Mutant bears. Sad stars. Puffy hearts. Then the head chef patted my head. They're unique, princess. I looked up at him and he continued. Taste is what matters, not appearance. I blinked, smiled, and nodded. He was right. My cookies still smelled good. Even if they looked like cursed relics from a forgotten baking cult. I turned to Nanny. Nanny, let's go to Papa. She nodded and we began the march toward the grumpiest man in the empire. And behind me I heard whispers. All the best, princess. Do your best. His Majesty will surely love your cookies. They all waved and cheered while I smiled at the basket in my hands. Let's hope Papa prefers taste over trauma. Emperor Cassius's POV. The Imperial Study. Damn those peasants. They held the meeting too long. It pissed me off, I muttered under my breath, rubbing my temples. The Imperial Study had never felt so cold. Not in temperature. No, the fire crackled beside me, warm as ever. But in the atmosphere. In silence. In the absence of something. Someone. I hadn't visited Lavinia since morning. Because I was brooding? Because I was sulking? Emperors don't sulk, I reminded myself. They seethe regally. And then, her voice echoed in my mind. Papa and Theon are in love. I froze. The memory stabbed me like a fork in the eye. Where in the seven hells did she learn that nonsense? I hissed, gripping the armrest. A chill ran down my spine like a cursed breeze. No, absolutely not. Theon, that cabbage? I stood pacing. The fire popped behind me like it agreed. Are children always this stupid? I asked the air. Silence. Then I frowned, paused mid-step and shook my head violently. No. My daughter is not stupid. She's brilliant. She's cunning. I exhaled sharply. Corrupted. That's it. Her brain has been tainted. I looked up at the ceiling like it personally offended me. Should I summon a priest to cleanse her? A beat. No. Not just one. I need 2 holy priests. One to purify her mind, and another to perform an exorcism on Theon. I massaged my temples and slumped into the chair with a heavy sigh. Knock knock. I blinked. My eyes narrowed. Come in, I said, my voice low and grim like a man about to sign a declaration of war. And of course, Theon. I flinched as if the devil himself had walked in. You, I snarled. Didn't I tell you not to show your damn face for a week? Theon didn't even flinch. You think I wanted to see your jerk-like face too? My fist clenched. This right here. I pointed at him with righteous fury. This is the problem. He raised an eyebrow. What problem? This disgusting familiarity between us. I snapped. He talked back. You show up uninvited. You argue like an insufferable wife. Theon froze. Wife, what the hell? I glared. You're too casual with me. Too familiar. She sees us bickering like an old married couple and thinks there's chemistry. Theon looked genuinely horrified. Don't say chemistry. That makes me want to puke. There was a brief silence as I stared him down. Why don't you get married? I asked, deadly serious. That might finally clear up my daughter's ridiculous misunderstanding. He slammed the document onto the table with a scoff. I should say the same to you. Maybe if we had an empress, the princess wouldn't be so confused. I leaned back slowly, narrowed my eyes and let out a low, threatening laugh. Are you trying to say this is my fault? Theon let out a long-suffering sigh and shoved a stack of documents toward me. Stop whining already. Just sign these. I need your approval. I scowled. I've been working non-stop since morning. I haven't even seen my daughter all day. And now you bring me this? I will rip out your soul for real. He scoffed. You're talking like you're actually hardworking. I glared so hard I thought my eyes might burst into flames. Sounds like someone has a death wish. He sighed again, completely unfazed. Knock knock. I growled. I swear if it's another official I'll kill him. The door creaked open slowly. Papa. We both turned. And there she was, my daughter, standing at the door with wide eyes and a basket clutched in her little hands. I froze. Then I slowly turned to Theon. He looked at me. Damn it. She's going to misunderstand again. Lavinia's POV. The imperial study was dark. Not because the lights were out. No, torches flickered on the walls, a fire danced in the hearth and everything was warm and glowing. But the mood? Yeah. The mood was, someone just pissed off a dragon. And that dragon of course was my beloved father. Papa looked like someone had personally offended his soul. And that someone was probably me. He had that distant, stressed expression like he'd just lost an empire or worse, found out I'd been sneaking out. And Theon? Oh, he looked like he was mentally rearranging his organs to survive whatever storm was brewing. Ahem. Papa. I peeked into the room, cradling my slightly tragic basket of half-dead cookies like it was a sacred offering from a tiny war hero. Or a bribe. Take your pick. Marshmallow padded in beside me, his little paws making no sound on the marble floor. His golden fur shimmered faintly in the firelight, divine eyes glowing like starlight. He walked slowly inside with me and then plopped down on the carpet, licking his paws. Whereas both Papa and Theon turned to look at me. Both of them flinched at the same time. Then they froze, like 2 statues sculpted in terror. Papa's eyes zeroed in on the basket in my arms like I was holding a baby chimera. What's that? He asked slowly, suspiciously, like I might have brought him a bomb disguised in frosting. It's cookies. I walked in confidently, even though the basket smelled like sugar, scorched hope and a dream half-baked. I made them myself. You did what? He asked, his voice dripping disbelief, like I just told him I rode a dragon bareback across the western mountains. Before I could answer, he shot up from his chair and, of course, lifted me clean off the ground like I weighed nothing. And once again, I was dangling in the air like a caught kitten. He turned me side to side, inspecting every inch of me. Did you burn yourself? Cut anything? Where's the damage? His gaze cut to the nanny behind me and his tone went sharp. Why was my daughter in the kitchen? I waved my arms frantically. It was me. I insisted. Nanny didn't want to let me. I forced her. His eyes turned to me, sharp, suspicious and so dramatic, and then he cradled me in his arms again. Why? I held up the basket solemnly. For Operation Cookie Peace Treaty to get success. He blinked. What? What operation? I know, Papa, you're very mad at me, I said seriously. Papa didn't respond. His face didn't move. But we moved to a chair and sat down together. He was cold, silent and stiff. Like he didn't want to melt. So I launched my final attack. I made these cookies to say sorry, I went on, pushing the basket gently towards him. I misunderstood you and Thean. I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions. I turned and pointed dramatically at Thean. But it's his fault too. You two are always clinging to each other like an old married couple. Thean coughed. I pressed on. And Papa isn't married, so I thought, maybe you love Thean. Thean choked. Papa turned slowly to glare at him like this was somehow his fault. So, I said, nudging the basket closer, these are apology cookies. From me. For assuming weird stuff and being annoying. Papa stared at the cookies like they might declare war on the Empire. Why do they look like they've survived battle? He muttered. I smiled sweetly, resisting every urge to yell. Don't get mad, Lavinia. This is diplomacy. Be the diplomat. Be the peace ambassador. Why don't you taste one, Papa? I said, tilting my head in my most adorable, innocent child who never does wrong way. I'm sure you'll love it. He picked one up carefully like it might explode. Then slowly took a bite. I held my breath. This was it. The moment of truth. I watched him like my entire career depended on it. My eyes sparkled with hope. Say it's delicious, Papa. Say it's the best cookie in the Empire. Say you've never tasted anything like it. It's too sugary, he said slowly. And also somehow, bitter? My sparkle died instantly. Seriously? Then don't eat them. I snapped, reaching for the basket. He pulled it away. But it's for me, isn't it? An apology cookie. Yes, but you don't appreciate it. It's still mine, he said, holding the basket out of my reach. Papa. I groaned. Then I pouted, lips wobbling like a sad little puppy. Seriously? I made them with my whole heart. Why didn't you taste my heart? He gave me a look, tired, done, utterly unimpressed. I didn't know hearts were on the dessert menu now. I stared at him. Then sighed dramatically. You're impossible. And then he ruffled my hair. You did well, sweetheart. I blinked. Huh. And I wasn't angry with you, he added. I blinked. Wait. So you're not mad? No, he said, softer this time. I'm not angry. But you didn't come visit me today, I muttered. He sighed, casting a sharp glare at Thean. I've been stuck with officials all day. I didn't even get to breathe properly. Really? Yes, he said, nodding. Then I hugged him tightly. Thank goodness. I really thought you were ignoring me on purpose. He hugged me back. And then, with the most casual cruelty. Still, thank you for these absolutely awful cookies. Ugh. You're so annoying, Papa. Marshmallow growled softly as if he was tired of the people around him. Emperor Cassius's POV. She had fallen asleep faster than usual. I pulled the blanket up to her shoulders, my movements precise, deliberate. No wasted effort. No fuss. Just enough to ensure she wouldn't catch a chill. Her breathing was slow and steady. Golden strands of hair clung to her cheek, and one small hand was curled loosely against Marshmallow's warm flank. The divine tiger had made his usual spot beside her. She fell asleep quickly today, I murmured. Behind me a quiet voice spoke. It's because she baked cookies for you, Your Majesty. I turned slightly to find Narina still standing beside me, her hands folded neatly in front of her, a fond smile on her face. My gaze shifted to the small table beside the armchair. The basket sat there like a half-forgotten offering, still exuding that strange scent of sugar and something burnt. I had to admit she truly tried. Was she upset all day? I asked, my voice low so as not to wake the little whirlwind beside me. Narina's expression softened further. She nodded. Yes, she was. She thought you were angry with her. She didn't say much, just sat by the window most of the time, mumbling to Marshmallow and poking her cookies like they'd betrayed her. I looked down at Lavinia again, her small hand resting against Marshmallow's thick fur. A smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. I sat down beside the bed, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. There was a time when silence in my chambers felt like solitude. But now the silence felt warm. Because she existed. Because she laughed, stomped through the halls, tried to broker peace with half-dead cookies, and looked at me like I was her whole world. I think I should thank her, I murmured. Narina blinked. Huh. Thank who, Your Majesty? The lady who gave birth to her, I said quietly. Narina smiled. Her voice was soft, gentle in that way only someone who truly loved a child could speak. I always thank her too, Your Majesty. For making you a father. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I leaned in, brushed a kiss against my daughter's forehead and whispered, "Rest well." And beside her, Marshmallow blinked his golden eyes at me, then yawned lazily and went back to sleep. The protector. The tiger. The companion. And now, part of this strange little family I never expected to have. Yes, I think I should thank her. For this gift. For this peace. For letting me become someone I never thought I could be. A father. I looked at Narina. I need you to find out about her. She blinked. You mean? My eyes returned to Lavinia, asleep beneath the soft blanket I'd just tucked in, her tiny body curled beside Marshmallow, her divine guardian. Yes, I said quietly. The girl who made me a father. Narina didn't ask again. She only smiled gently and bowed her head. I'll speak with the head maid at first light, Your Majesty. I gave a slight nod. No records. No name. No face. Just a maid entered my chamber one day, cradling a newborn in trembling arms and whispering, Your Majesty, a princess has been born. No one knew who the mother was. No one dared ask. I never cared to find out. But now, perhaps I do. Perhaps it's time I finally learned the truth about the woman who gave me her. Theon's POV. Theon, meet my son Regis and the future Emperor Cassius. That was the first time I saw them, under the orange-tinged sky of late autumn, framed by the courtyard of the Everhart estate. I was 15. Just a boy with calloused hands, a stiff uniform too big for me, and a heart still raw from my father's death. He died in a war that had nothing to do with him but everything to do with honor. My father had been a knight who gave his life protecting Grand Duke Gregor. And the Grand Duke in return took me in, out of gratitude, duty, or perhaps guilt. I never asked. He gave me shelter, food, and education, a new purpose. I suppose my father's sacrifice wasn't in vain. Because that was the day I became more than a forgotten orphan. That was the day I met them. Prince Regis smiled the moment our eyes met. You look nervous, he said with a playful grin. Don't be. Cassius looks like that all the time. That meant the boy who stood behind him, golden-haired, crimson-eyed, eerily still, unreadable. Cassius didn't offer a word that time. He just stared at me like he was deciding where I belonged, beneath his sword or beside it. Then I came to learn that he always looked like that. Even in the years that followed. He never changed. He never smiled. Not once. As we grew up together, the three of us, under the ancient stone arches of Everhart. Regis with his easy laughter and mischief. Cassius with his silence sharp as daggers. I watched Cassius train alone in the dark, sparring with shadows like they owed him blood. He rarely spoke unless necessary, but I learned to read him anyway. The slight twitch of his jaw when he was angry, the narrowed eyes when he was plotting. I always wondered, why did the future Emperor of Valerian grow up here so far from the palace? Why did the Crown Prince wear second-hand clothes and eat with soldiers? And then I saw the scars. One night I entered the training yard with a towel in hand, thinking he might need it. He had stripped off his shirt, chest heaving from another round of sword drills. And I saw it. His back. It looked like a battlefield. Old whip marks, crisscrossed and healed poorly. Blunt bruises that spoke of fists and boots. I stood frozen, the towel slipping from my fingers, and he sensed me. Don't ask, he said coldly, still facing the target dummy. And I never asked. But Regis did tell me that Cassius was the illegitimate child of the Emperor, born of a low-born maid. The Empress, proud and poisonous, saw him as a stain. Her sons, pampered, cruel and spineless, treated him worse than a stray dog. And the emperor? He let it happen. Cassius was 9 when Grand Duke Gregor found out. 10 when he was dragged out of the palace, half dead, and brought to the Everhart estate. I remember the first time I heard Cassius speak his dream aloud when we were 16. I will take his throne. I'll burn his palace to the ground. And when I wear that crown, it will be on the bones of everyone who betrayed me. That was the only time I saw fire in his eyes. Not warmth. Not hope. Just pure, sharp vengeance, and that time maybe Regis and I decided to support him in any way we could. Not because we feared him but because he was a friend. The nobles had already begun turning against the old emperor. Greed makes enemies and he hoarded everything, coin, power, even the gods' favor, or so he claimed. With Grand Duke Gregor's influence, Cassius gained nobles' favor. But he never relied on them. He never trusted them. He was simply waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment to strike. To end the man who called himself father of the Illyrian Empire. And every night, no matter how late it was, no matter how bruised or bloodied his body became, he trained. We'd watch from the upper windows sometimes, Regis and I. The moon would hang heavy above the field and Cassius would move like a ghost, precise, relentless. Regis would sigh beside me, arms crossed. Sigh. He's still practicing? I wouldn't answer. Because I knew. That wasn't just training. It was survival. It was war in silence. And when Cassius turned 18, the silence ended. Grand Duke Gregor made the first move. With documents, testimonies and forged letters. All real, all damning. He exposed the emperor's rot in front of the entire court. Secret alliances with hostile empires. Taxes squeezed from starving peasants. The disappearance of whistleblowers. The embezzlement rings of the high nobles who swore their loyalty with gilded tongues. And the people, they erupted. Anger spilled like wildfire in the streets. Riots bloomed across the empire. The nobles turned on each other, desperate to prove their hands were clean. And in the eye of the storm, Cassius moved. No warning. No announcement. Just steel drawn in the dark and an army marching on the imperial palace. I was there. We all were. Regis, the Grand Duke, Ravik, and the nobles who dared to stand with him. The night reeked of blood before the gates even fell. Cassius didn't show mercy to any of those who attacked him. Not to the Empress. Not to his half-siblings. Not to the Emperor who sired him. I remember the Emperor's voice as he knelt on the marble floor, soaked in blood, his crown lost somewhere in the chaos. Then, please, he rasped, crawling toward him on all fours, his golden robes torn and stained. I am your father. Spare me. I beg of you. Cassius didn't flinch. He raised his boot and crushed the Emperor's outstretched hand beneath it, bone cracking like dry twigs underfoot. Did you spare me? The Emperor screamed. His tears mixed with blood as he clutched what was left of his hand. I was 8, Cassius said. His voice was calm, cold. When your wife whipped my back with a branding iron. I was 9 when your sons held me down and made bets on how long I could scream. The Emperor choked. Cassius didn't let him speak again. He didn't kill them there. No. Ravik, drag them to the throne room, he ordered, and Ravik nodded. He dragged them, what was left of them, into the throne room. I followed behind. The halls were quiet, too quiet, as if the entire palace was holding its breath. The twin princes were first. They begged. They cried. One of them even tried to hide behind a pillar. Cassius didn't even blink when he beheaded them both. One swing for each neck, clean and precise. Blood splattered across the marble floor. The Empress screamed, her voice cracking. No. My children, no, she wailed, crawling forward, clawing at the floor as if she could gather their bodies back together. Her cries echoed through the throne room, raw and broken. Cassius stepped over the corpses without a word and ascended the steps. Then he sat on the imperial throne. The Empress looked up at him through a curtain of tears and blood, her body trembling. Her once beautiful face was smeared with soot and ash, her jeweled robes torn and soaked in grief. I knew it. She hissed, her voice shaking with rage. I knew it from the start. You're a monster. A monster. The Emperor, kneeling beside her, was silent, shaking, eyes wide, mouth slack. And beside him, his wife kept mumbling the same thing over and over, like a prayer turned curse. A monster. He's a monster. A monster. The Empress kept mumbling, rocking back and forth, her eyes glassy with terror. Cassius tilted his head, a slow, cruel smile tugging at his lips. "A monster?" he echoed, voice low and mocking. Then, still seated on the throne, he leaned forward slightly, his eyes gleaming with something far colder than hatred. "Then let me show you exactly what kind of monster you created." His gaze shifted toward me. "Theon," he said, calm as ever. "Bring me the whip." I didn't hesitate. I simply nodded and obeyed. When I returned, I placed the braided leather in his hand. Cassius didn't move. He turned to the man Ravik, who was standing near him. "Ravik," he said, tossing the whip like it was nothing. "Let her feel every scar she left behind." Ravik bowed. "Yes, your majesty." The Empress shrieked. "No. You can't, I am the..." The first strike tore through the air and through her words. The sound echoed through the throne room like a judgment passed by the gods. She screamed. And again. But Cassius remained seated on that throne, unmoving. Unflinching. The Emperor, his father, watched from the floor, paralyzed in terror and shame, as the woman he once called Empress was reduced to little more than blood and broken flesh. Until her screams stopped. Until her body no longer twitched. Until silence returned to the room, thick and suffocating. Cassius sat there, still as stone. Expressionless. Even Regis and I stood beside him, unmoving. Not because we weren't horrified, we were. But we understood. What they did to him, this was the price. And that night, the boy I met when I was 15, the one who never smiled, who bled in silence, he died. And in his place an emperor was born. Theon's POV. And that night, the boy I met when I was 15, the one who never smiled, who bled in silence, he died. And in his place an emperor was born. I thought, now he would smile. That vengeance, power, and justice carved from the bones of his abusers would finally set him free. But revenge, it turns out, doesn't heal. It only changes the shape of the wound. After Cassius became emperor, he ruled with a sword sharper than any of his predecessors. One mistake, just one, and heads would roll. Ministers whispered behind locked doors, terrified of breathing wrong in his presence. Even nobles who once kissed his boots trembled under his gaze. He governed with terrifying precision. The empire flourished. Corruption died screaming. Borders stabilized. Trade routes blossomed like spring after decades of frost. The empire ran smoothly and he managed it well, except he never managed himself. He became something else. Hollowed out. Empty-eyed. A walking corpse draped in silk and crowned in gold. I thought foolishly that if someone could reach him, soften him, he'd come back to life. So I tried. I arranged banquets. Gatherings. Sent women known for their beauty and charm, hoping maybe someone, anyone, could stir something in him. But none dared to stand in front of him. They looked at his crimson eyes and saw the butcher, not the man. Some didn't even make it past the threshold. One wept and fainted. Another begged me to never call her again, and the last one swore she saw the devil smiling at her from the shadows. He wasn't. That's just how his face looks. But I digress. Cassius didn't look at people like they were people. He looked at them like obstacles. And if you became one, he'd crush you underfoot without pause. That's how life had been moving in this imperial palace. The days were messy. The nights. Worse. He always ended up drunk like some tragic hero in a bad play. Bottle in one hand, sword in the other, muttering to ghosts only he could see. So naturally no one dared to come near him. And then, one night, out of nowhere, he barked an order like a madman. Drag every night and maid from the Eastern Palace. Now. I blinked. Pardon. He turned, eyes glowing like molten embers. They left my daughter alone. They need to be punished. I waited. And waited. Because clearly I misheard him. My brain. It buffered like a scratched phonograph. Wait, what? Daughter. I choked. What daughter? Whose daughter? Your daughter. He was already storming ahead, cloak billowing like he was in some dramatic opera. I scrambled after him, still trying to plug the short-circuiting in my head. Your Majesty, what are you talking about? Since when do you have a daughter? Just do as I say, he growled, clearly in no mood. But when the hell did you even have sex? He stopped, turned, and gave me a look that said, if I weren't already your childhood friend, you'd be headless by now. Is that important right now? he snapped. She's suffering. I stared. The great Cassius Devereux, feared Emperor of Valerian, the demon on the throne, the man who made seasoned generals weep into their helmets, was freaking out over a baby. Baby? I was still trying to process his sudden dadness when he kicked open the nursery doors of an eastern palace like a man possessed. Then there she was. Tiny. Soft. Golden-haired. Wrapped in a blanket near the open window. There was really a baby here. How in the world did a baby come from him? Did the gods take pity on us and drop her down from the heavens just to keep the empire from turning into an actual bloodbath? Because that was the only explanation I could think of. But then I looked closer and her face was too pale. Her fingers curled too tight. Her skin was cold enough that I winced. Call the imperial doctor, Cassius said, his voice sharper than a sword's edge. And summon the priest. I nodded so fast I almost broke my neck. And from that day on, Princess Lavinia took over the empty heart of Cassius Devereux, the ruthless, terrifying Emperor of Valerian, without him even knowing it. At first he looked at her like she was some artifact. Interesting. Fragile. Not important. He never held her for too long. Didn't speak much. He just stared. Like he was waiting for her to vanish. But she didn't. She cried. She yawned. She pooped. She hiccuped like a drunk little pigeon. She even slapped him once with her tiny hand. And slowly he started to respond. Not like a ruler. Not like a general. But like a father. He started holding her longer. Talking to her, gruffly, awkwardly, like he was addressing a war council. Ugh, she's so damn small. Will she break if I hold her for long? She sleeps too much. Progress is progress. Slowly he started letting her fall asleep on his chest. He stayed beside her until she fell asleep. And, miracle of miracles, he started smiling. Gods help me, the emperor started smiling. Suddenly I wasn't working beside a devil anymore. I was working beside a man again. A ruthless, merciless, still kind of terrifying man, but a man nonetheless. And our little princess? And our little princess? She ruled the palace with her laughs and blabbers. She wasn't scared of him. Not even a little. She didn't inherit just his eyes, she inherited his fearlessness too. Whenever someone died right in front of her. Blood, chaos, the whole grim affair. And our Princess Lavinia? She just stared. Not a blink. Like it was normal. Like she knew exactly what was happening. Like she understood everything. And yet, sometimes she's just a child. Falling into ponds. Gasping at flowers. Staring at stars like they were new to her. Other times she acts like a mature little lady, curling up beside Lord Osric and pampering him like he's her personal plush toy. And then sometimes, she blabbers. The worst was when she looked at me and Cassius, dead serious, and declared, Papa and Theon are in love. Silence. A whole hallway stunned. Morella choked on her own spit. I panicked. I still haven't recovered from that. And now, I'm standing frozen in the royal office, blinking at him like a fool. Pardon? I ask. I want you to find out, Cassius says, calm as if he's asking me to fetch him tea. About the woman who gave birth to Lavinia. Why? I ask slowly, suspiciously. What's the point now? She's already gone. He pauses. His gaze drifts toward the window where the sunset bleeds gold across the sky. I don't know, he mutters. But I think she deserves to be recognized. As Lavinia's birth mother. At least as a thank you. My brain stalls. Wow. Did your heart turn to gold? Did you finally become human? Shut up, he glares. But I keep thinking about it, he goes on. I asked Narina to look into it. She questioned the head maid. Apparently the woman was a newly hired servant. But he slides a parchment across the desk toward me. There's something weird about this. I look down at the document. A servant registry. Normal. Bland. Until. Wait. This isn't even stamped by the head maid. I frown. Where's the signature? Her background information? Place of origin? This is just a name, Cassius finishes grimly. That no one remembers. I look up. You're telling me the head maid doesn't know who she was or where she came from? She claims she hired her, Cassius says, but under certain, unusual circumstances. She never got her background. Never pushed for details. Then how the hell did she even start working here? We don't hire anyone without a background check. Cassius opens a drawer and pulls out a sealed letter. She had this. A recommendation letter. From a noble house in the foreign kingdom. A foreign kingdom? I take the letter, turning it over in my hands. The seal is definitely not from Malarian. The paper quality, the ink, even the signature. It all screams not from here. But a maid from a foreign kingdom? That's odd. Really odd. We barely let in nobles from other lands without 100 checks. And yet somehow a maid slipped through? Yeah. We really need to look into this. For our princess. I say. All right. I'll dig into it. Cassius nods, but he doesn't say anything. His gaze is still locked on the profile tucked into the folder. What little we have of it anyway. Dark hair. Green eyes. A woman with a strangely gentle smile. Nothing fancy. No jewelry. No embellishments. But even through a faded profile sketch, there's something off about her. Or maybe not off, just striking. She had an aura. Even from a simple drawing. A stillness settles between us. The kind that whispers of storms far, far away. I run a hand through my hair. Sigh. I just hope this doesn't end up chaotic. Cassius doesn't reply. Which honestly is the worst sign. Lavinia's POV. Seriously, why do you keep getting heavy? I groaned as I put Marshmallow down onto the soft grass of the Imperial Garden, my tiny arms trembling from the effort. Seriously, he looked like a fat cat now. A very round, very lazy divine beast. I stroked his fluffy back with mild judgment. Hey, are you sure you're divine? He meowed once. Then he flopped over dramatically like a furry sack of flour and started snoring. Loudly. I'll take that as a no, I muttered. Looks like someone's getting diet food starting tomorrow. Sigh. It's been more than a month since I baked cookies for Papa. The slightly horrifying, questionably shaped cookies of doom. I even gave those little disasters to Theon, Morella, Grandpa Gregor, Grand Duke Regis, Ravik and Osric too. They all said thank you. But their expressions screamed, what kind of hellish thing is this? And not much has changed since then. Except my cheeks getting chubbier and Marshmallow turning into a sleepy, snoring rice ball. Papa's still busy. Theon and Nanny too. Like weirdly busy. Suspiciously busy. They whisper in corners when they think I'm not looking. Sneaking off with scrolls and papers. Acting like they're in some kind of royal spy club. Nothing's reached my ears, but I know something's up. There's a secret mission going on. And guess who's not invited? Me. Rude. Lavi. I turned at the familiar voice and blinked up at the boy with messy brown hair and guilt all over his face. Whoa, so you still exist? I said dramatically, flinging myself onto Marshmallow like a betrayed heroine. Osric flinched like I'd just slapped him with a wet sock. I'm sorry, Lavi. I patted Marshmallow's fluff, cutting him off smoothly. Practicing sword. I know. He rubbed the back of his neck, awkwardly shuffling his feet. I didn't mean to ignore you like that. I thought I could master the next form quickly, but... You lost to Ravik again, didn't you? He made a sound like a dying frog. You're too sharp for a toddler. And you're too young to fight Ravik, I replied sweetly, plopping down beside Marshmallow. You look tired. Did you come to nap with us? Osric sighed and sat down next to me, his gaze drifting to the snoring fluff ball. Are you angry with me, Lavi? I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye. No. I'm just bored. Then in my most dramatic whisper I added, maybe I should have more than one friend. His head whipped around like I'd smacked him with betrayal. Lavi. Before he could say anything else, a voice called out across the garden. Princess. Morella came running toward us, her boots thudding against the stone path. She stopped in front of us, trying to catch her breath. Princess, His Majesty wants to see you. I blinked at her lazily, not moving an inch. Isn't he busy with Theon and Nanny? No, Princess, Morella smiled brightly. He's not. I narrowed my eyes suspiciously. Why no? Is this part of the secret mission? Are they finally going to confess and hand me a crown of tiny spies? I sat there for a moment, arms crossed. Then with a dramatic pout I muttered, I'm not going. Morella blinked. Excuse me, I said. I turned my face away like a misunderstood protagonist in a tragic romance. Not going. But why? Morella's voice trembled like a nervous leaf in a storm. I looked up at the sky dramatically. It was blue and clear and full of sunshine, which only made everything worse somehow. Because I don't want to. But Princess. Morella sounded like she was moments away from bursting into tears. His Majesty personally sent me for you. I avoided everyone's eyes, turning my face into Marshmallow's warm belly. I don't want to meet anyone. I feel distressed. My brain needs to relax. My eyes need to relax. My body needs to be cradled by the soft clouds of the universe. Princess, if you don't come now, I'll have to carry you, Morella said with the grim determination of a soldier marching into battle. You wouldn't dare. She raised an eyebrow. I gasped, full of betrayal. That's treason. I'm following orders, she replied with a tired sigh. That's exactly what traitors say, I huffed, rolling away dramatically and flopping onto Marshmallow like a defeated heroine. He snorted in his sleep, still absolutely useless. Osric stood up beside me, brushing grass off his pants with the weary air of someone who's dealt with me before. Come on, Lavi. Let's go see what His Majesty wants. Maybe it's important. I sat up slowly, clutching Marshmallow like a plushie and blinking at Osric with watery eyes. You're taking her side? Osric looked like he just got accused of betrayal by a baby deer. No, I just think maybe His Majesty has something nice planned. You've been saying you're bored all morning. Maybe I like being bored now, I snapped, then pouted immediately after. Maybe boredom is part of my aesthetic. Osric blinked. What does that even mean? Seriously. Fine, I grumbled, standing up and scooping Marshmallow into my arms like a very fluffy, very passive hostage. I'll go. Morella let out a relieved sigh. I stomped forward, mumbling under my breath. I feel like a dog. I just go whenever someone summons me. Next thing you know, they'll be making me fetch sticks. Do you want to be carried, Princess? Morella offered kindly. I have legs, Morella, I huffed, still grumbling like a tragic heroine on her way to exile. She led us to the meeting room. Why do I always end up visiting Papa in the meeting room of all places? It's always the meeting room. Does he live there now? Is it his natural habitat? Oh, whatever. Let's just get this over with. The guards opened the big heavy door and I marched in like a storm cloud with pigtails. Papa was sitting at the head of the table in his oversized imperial chair, looking all majestic and kingly like usual. I didn't bother checking who else was in the room. All I knew was I was carrying a chubby traitor of a cat, divine animal, I guess, who refused to walk. I plopped Marshmallow down and he immediately meowed like I'd just committed an act of betrayal. Hey, I muttered, brushing off my arms. I'm generous enough to hold you all the way here. My arms are short, you know. He meowed again, this time with the tragic wail of someone who'd been abandoned by the gods themselves. I put my hands on my hips and narrowed my eyes at him. If you want me to keep carrying you, you need to start dieting. Someone in the room chuckled. Then, Lavinia, come here. Papa's voice. Come, warm. Suspiciously inviting. I looked over and saw him sitting like royalty because, well, he is, wearing that gentle smile that made me suspicious by default. Still, I walked up to him with the authority of a toddler who knew her worth. He scooped me up into his lap like he missed me, which I'm pretty sure he did, but still. Why are you late? He asked, brushing some grass off my dress. I narrowed my eyes. Papa, do you think I have all the time in the world? That earned a raised brow. I wonder, what kind of things a 3-year-old could possibly be busy with? Excuse you, I sniffed. Some of us have complicated emotional lives. Emotional lives, he echoed, clearly fighting a smile. Yes. Stress. Betrayal. Boredom. Identity crisis. And now, apparently, babysitting a divine animal who snores like a drunk uncle. That earned a louder laugh from somewhere in the room. Papa looked like he was enjoying this too much. Should I summon royal therapists for you then? Do they give snacks? I asked seriously. Probably not. Then I'll suffer in silence. He blinked at me, probably questioning the fact that his 3-year-old daughter just said that like a tragic heroine, and then smiled, patting my head. So warm. So gentle. So Papa. For a second I felt so calm that I felt like I could curl up in his arms and take a nap and not be judged for being a brat all day. But then I felt it. That feeling. The someone is staring at me too hard feeling. I peeked sideways, casually, like how spies do it in storybooks. My eyes landed on a man I definitely didn't recognize. He looked around Papa's age, or maybe a little older. His long hair was green, like the nice kind of forest green, not the mossy kind, and his eyes were the same shade, bright and sharp, like they could see through thoughts. And he was staring at me. Hard. Like he'd never seen a child before. Or a princess. Or, dare I say, a devastatingly beautiful creature like me. I blinked. He didn't. Creepy. What was his problem? Papa, I whispered in a dramatic hush, tugging at his collar. There's a weird man staring at me like I'm a rare bug. Papa chuckled lightly and whispered back. He's just surprised, I think. I frowned, lowering my voice to an offended mutter. Why? Have people never seen a beautiful 3-year-old creature like me before? That earned a blink from Papa. Then a short, stunned silence. He glanced toward the man, and for a second something in his expression shifted. Just briefly. His smile didn't falter, but his eyes turned thoughtful. Quiet. Serious. But who is he? I asked. You'll find out soon enough, he said almost too softly. But what was that supposed to mean? I kept my eyes on the green-haired stranger who still hadn't blinked, still watching me like I was some rare creature that shouldn't exist. And for the first time in a while, I had a weird feeling in my tummy. Not Marshmallow's weight crushing my spine. Just this strange, fluttery feeling. Like something big was coming. I noticed everyone in the meeting room today. Grand Duke Regis, Grandpa Gregor, Nanny, Ravik, Theon, Morella and Osric. But still, the fluttery feeling didn't go away. In fact, the longer that weird green-haired man kept staring at me, the worse it got. Not in a bad way. Just in an, I need to dramatically collapse onto a chaise lounge and whisper, "What is the meaning of this?" kind of way. I scooted a little closer to Papa's chest and narrowed my eyes. Marshmallow plodded over and flopped right beside Papa's chair like a bodyguard made of pudding. Now the green-haired man blinked at Marshmallow, and now his eyes widened. But maybe that's what shocked him. Never seen a divine animal before? Or just surprised it looks like a living rice bun with legs? He looked more stunned the longer he stared. Like he couldn't decide whether Marshmallow was sacred or snackable. But then he looked back at me. And suddenly his eyes were full of sparkles? No, worse. Love. The kind you find in bad romance novels. The kind where the guy sees the heroine across the room and says something dramatic like, "I've been waiting for you all my life." Except I was 3. I mean, I don't mind being admired. I'm beautiful. It's fine. But this man was clearly shooting love lasers from his eyeballs. Weirdo alert. He took a step forward, his voice gentle and weirdly soft. "Your Majesty." But before he could finish, Grand Duke Regis glided between them like a butler/bouncer with a smile so elegant it felt suspicious. "I may excuse you," he said politely, "but I think it's better His Majesty speaks with the princess, alone." But I tilted my head like a confused puppy. What's this? What's going on? Why does it suddenly feel like a conspiracy is being slow-cooked around me? Even Theon chimed in, casually placing a hand on the green-haired man's shoulder. "Yes, I agree. Perhaps it's time we gave them some privacy." Everyone nodded. Just like that. Even Osric looked confused, his brows furrowed as he followed the adults out like a sheep in a flock. Now I feel like I wanted to grab someone and shout, "Excuse me, what is happening?" But Papa was still warm and I was too tired for drama. As the door closed behind them, I was left alone with Papa. Well, alone except for Marshmallow, who was snoring dramatically like he wanted to be cast in a theater play about naps. And then I peeked over again. The green-haired man hadn't taken his eyes off me. Right before the door shut completely, I caught one last glimpse of him staring at me like he'd just found the meaning of life, in a 3-year-old girl. Then Papa patted my head gently. "Do you want something?" I blinked up at him, half melting into his chest. "No. I better not." He raised a brow. "Why? Don't you like snacks?" I pointed dramatically at Marshmallow, sprawled out like a fainted fluffy dumpling. "That guy over there? The second he senses snacks, he turns into a beast of gluttony. He'll devour everything before I even lift a finger." Papa looked over and deadpanned. "I see. Is that why he looks like a pig now?" I nodded solemnly. "Yes. He's lost the way of the divine." We both fell into a comfortable silence, me leaning against his chest, his hand still stroking my hair gently. My eyelids fluttered. Sleep was so close, like a soft blanket being pulled over my brain. And then, "Do you miss your mother, Lavinia?" Huh. I blinked hard. My almost sleepy brain did a full restart. What kind of random character development triggering question was that? My eyes narrowed suspiciously as I stared up at Papa's face. He looked perfectly calm, stroking my hair like he hadn't just dropped an emotional bomb out of nowhere. I tilted my head to analyze. Papa looked completely normal. No strange expression. No dramatic violin music. Nothing. Just a casual question tossed like a stone into a peaceful lake. I plopped my cheek back on his chest, now wide awake. Very suspicious. "I don't know who my mother is, Papa," I said after a beat, flopping back onto his chest with a soft plop. "I've never seen her." Papa was quiet. "So," I continued, "how would I miss someone who doesn't even exist in my life?" He looked a little taken aback. Then he smiled softly, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. It was true though. I'd never heard whispers, never seen a portrait, never even accidentally stumbled on a hint. Not even a passing mention in those gossiping maids' tea sessions. But I think mothers were for other people. As far as I knew, from both palace rumors and the original novel plot, some maid gave birth to me. That was it. End of footnote. And honestly, it didn't matter. Papa and the rest of the people in the palace gave me everything a mother could. Food, warmth, love, and the occasional chaos. All the essentials. So no, I didn't miss her. There was no hole in my heart or longing sighs while staring at the moon. I was fine. Perfectly fine. But, still, "You need to know about the woman who gave birth to you," Papa said, interrupting my confident monologue. I looked at him. Then he reached beside his chair and pulled out a slim stack of papers. "This is her." Her. I blinked. I don't know why, but my hands moved on their own, reaching out like I was being drawn by magic. He placed the top page gently in my hands. And there she was. The woman who gave birth to me. She had long, dark hair that shimmered like ink under candlelight, and eyes so green they looked like forest leaves after rain. Her features were sharp yet soft, graceful, poised, and elegant. Not the kind of face that screamed common maid. There was something different about her. Something almost otherworldly. And for a full 10 seconds I couldn't say anything. I just stared. She was really gorgeous. And then it hit me. I got good genes. I mean, look at her. I was destined to be stunning. My heart swelled with so much pride I thought I might explode. I mean, forget modesty, this was destiny. I was obviously created by the universe to bless the empire with cuteness and future beauty. But then I noticed something else. She had the same eyes as the green-haired man. Same shade of soft, glowy green, like enchanted forest leaves after rain. My brain started doing that suspicious toddler math. Pretty mother, green-haired man. Both had shiny green eyes, and they were both staring at me like I was the moon and a cookie combined. Suspicious. Papa cleared his throat, still holding me in his lap. "Lavinia," he said, his voice gentler than usual, "this is Lady Sylvain, emissary from the kingdom of Nivali." Nivali? Never heard of it. Which wasn't saying much, okay? I'm 3. My world knowledge is mostly cookies, naps, and dramatic flair. Nivali? That name sounded distant. Elegant. I see, maybe. I tilted my head, suspicious. "Papa, I am 3. I never heard of such a kingdom." Papa chuckled and patted my back. "It's an elven kingdom in the far north." Excuse me, what? Elven kingdom. Elven. My whole tiny body stiffened in his arms like I'd just been dunked in cold water. Slowly, I turned my head at the picture I was holding, back to stare at Lady Sylvain. I mean, at my birth mother's picture again. She was still looking at me. Elegant. Poised. But she doesn't look like an elf, I mumbled suspiciously, squinting harder. "Where are the pointy ears?" Papa huffed a soft laugh and brushed his hand gently over my head. "That's because she was only half elf." I blinked. "Half." He nodded. I stared harder. Still no pointy ears. Still just the glowing green eyes that looked like they'd been carved from jade. So, I frowned deeper, clutching the picture with both hands like it might explain itself if I stared long enough. "You're saying I'm also half-elf? Technically that would make you a quarter elf," Papa said with an amused smile. "But yes." My mouth dropped open. "And that weird grandpa," I pointed accusingly in the direction of the mysterious man who had been standing here and staring at me earlier. He's related to my mom? Papa looked proud. In that smug my daughter is a genius kind of way. He nodded. That weird grandpa, as you so kindly put it, is your maternal grandfather. Your mother's father. A pure-blood elf. I opened my mouth. Paused. Closed it. Then opened it again. So, that explains the ears. Exactly. And the staring? Well, probably also the attitude. I gave him a look. This is a lot to handle at 3 look. I held the picture a little tighter. My thoughts are buzzing now. Quarter elf. A maternal grandfather I'd never heard of. A birth mother who apparently had elf blood and glowy eyes. I didn't know what this meant for me yet, but something told me, something new was going to start. Thean's POV. It was too late. When, can I see my granddaughter? The green-haired man from the Elven Kingdom paced back and forth, his steps unusually silent despite the polished marble floors. Lord Gregor sighed, rubbing his temples before stepping in. Please have some patience. The princess is 3. His Majesty needs to explain everything in a way she can understand. The elf let out another deep breath, his brows furrowing, and now his pacing had turned into a brisk march. I watched him go back and forth like a caged animal. The tension in the room was thick, restless. I sighed quietly. Those beings from fairy tales, whispered about in history books and bedtime stories. No one knew where they lived anymore. They disappeared from the human world long ago, vanished into myth, into mystery. And that's exactly how they liked it. Hidden, untouched, distant. And they expected humans to keep their distance too. Elves weren't meant to care. That's what the stories always said. They were prideful, long-lived creatures, untouched by the passage of time and human sentiment. And yet, there he was. That elf. Anxious. Restless. Repeating the same 5 steps like they were the only thing keeping him grounded. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed loosely. Watching. And now here he is, standing in the heart of our empire, proving they exist. The maternal grandfather of our princess. The man pacing like the wind couldn't hold him still. Was Tylen Ilariandil of Nivali. A full-blooded elf. A healer from Nivali, the hidden kingdom nestled deep within the frost-laced woods beyond the eastern sea. A month ago, His Majesty ordered a search for the princess's birth mother. He'd said it quietly, firmly, she deserves to be known as the mother of a princess. Even if the answer is difficult. At first there was nothing. No record, no family, not even a surname. Just a maid who had come and gone like a shadow. I mean Lady Sylvain. That's what she went by. All we had was a name and a faint trail. A letter of recommendation. Old parchment, foreign seal, which turns out she came from the kingdom of Valdenza, carrying a document that granted her passage and temporary work in the Ilarian court. It seemed normal at first until we traced it further. According to what we uncovered, the Lean had once been revered among his people, respected for his healing magic and quiet wisdom. But decades ago he made a choice no elf was supposed to make. He fell in love with a human. A woman from Valdenza, a foreign empire to the west. A knight. Strong, honorable, foolishly brave. No one knew her name at first, just that she had been injured during a border skirmish and somehow ended up near the Nivali forests. The Lean found her. Treated her. Fell for her. And in doing so broke 100 sacred elven laws. Elves weren't allowed to love humans. Not officially. Not openly. Not ever. So they ran. They abandoned everything, her sword, his title, and made a life in a northern village far from both of their homelands. Quiet. Hidden. Forgotten. And from that love they had a daughter. Sylvain. The woman we once called a mere maid. Years passed. Peaceful. Fragile. But the world does not let forbidden things rest for long. When a plague swept through the outer villages of Nivali, they sent word to the Lean, pleading for their lost healer to return. He went thinking he'd be back in a few weeks. But he was gone for 3 years. And when he returned, his beloved was already buried beneath snow and stone. And Sylvain, his daughter, was gone. Vanished with no trace. He searched for her for years. Quietly. Patiently. But he never found her. Elves live long lives, but even so time can bleed you dry. When His Majesty ordered Lady Sylvain's background to be investigated, determined to honor her as the mother of Princess Lavinia, Lord Gregor led the search. No one expected the trail to lead beyond maps and mortal lands. According to him, when their party stumbled into Nivali territory, they were attacked on sight. I wasn't surprised. Elves weren't known for their hospitality. But Lord Gregor, ever the stubborn ox, held his ground. He told them he was searching for the grandfather of their empire's sole princess. Of course they thought he was mad. Until he spoke one name. Tylen Ilariandel. Even then it wasn't easy. According to Lord Gregor, Tylen refused to believe him. Stoic. Silent. Wrapped in the cold stillness of someone who'd lost hope too many times before. Not until Gregor pulled out the picture of Sylvain, one we had as her profile. That was when the great Tylen Ilariandel broke. Not loudly. Not with tears. But something shifted. A crack in the frost. And now, he's here. Pacing. Waiting. Clutching the only thread of his daughter that remains. Lavinia. He doesn't look like how I imagined an elf would. There's no shimmering glow. No crown of light. No floating above the ground. Just a tall, tired man with long green hair tied behind him, sharp features weathered by grief, and a gaze that's seen centuries. His hands are steady but his steps are not. She'll be scared, I murmured aloud, surprising myself. Ex-Lord Gregor turned toward me. She's not the type to scare easily. I shrugged, eyes never leaving Tylen. Even so, that man isn't just a stranger. He's a myth walking through our doors. A moment of silence passed. The elf paused mid-step, eyes flicking toward the closed doors of the meeting room like he could will them open through sheer longing. But I wonder, will she understand? Ex-Lord Gregor asked quietly. Well, probably not. She's only 3. But still she's Princess Lavinia. I think, I said slowly, she'll surprise us. She always does. And then the doors opened. Out walked His Majesty. Not with the imposing steps of a ruler, but the quiet tread of a father carrying the whole world on his shoulder. Literally. Princess Lavinia's head rested against him, her golden hair like sunlight spilling across his dark coat. She was fast asleep, small lips parted in a quiet sigh, her hand still clutching a button on his collar. Marshmallow trailed behind him like a cotton-tailed bodyguard. Tylen stepped forward, eyes locked on the sleeping child. Did you tell her? He asked, voice strained. Cassius nodded, his eyes cold, calculating even in fatherhood. I did. And? The elf's voice trembled, not from fear but anticipation. She said, Cassius replied coolly, I guess I have a cool-looking grandpa now. Tylen blinked. Hope flashed in his expression. So, she accepts me? Cassius didn't answer directly, but the faint flicker of a nod was enough. Then, can I carry her? Tylen asked, stepping forward. Cassius's eyes sharpened into slits of crimson steel. He took one precise step back, shielding Princess Lavinia's sleeping form. No. Why not? Tylen asked, tension creeping into his voice. She is my granddaughter. And she is my daughter, Cassius said, the chill in his voice enough to frost the windows. You've only just found her. I raised her. I searched for Sylvain for years. I have that right. You have nothing until I say otherwise. The room dropped into silence. Lord Gregor tensed beside me. I held my breath. Even Marshmallow stopped chewing on air. Tylen squared his shoulders. I may be an outsider to your empire, your majesty. But I am not a stranger to blood. And now the staring contest began. I watched the two of them lock eyes like two territorial stags sizing each other up. The air between them practically crackled. Grand Duke Regis leaned over and whispered to me, should we do something? No, I muttered. This is oddly entertaining. Cassius's sighs and eyes narrowed. She's asleep. If you wake her, you deal with the consequences. Tylen glared, sharp and frost-edged. But then he sighed long and slow as if he were melting into resignation. Fine, he murmured. But you won't stop me from meeting her. Cassius tilted his head just slightly. Don't worry. I don't take anyone's rights. It sounded civil. Almost polite. But everyone in the room heard what he didn't say, but I won't give them up easily either. And that was how we got involved with the elves. A healer turned grandfather. A tyrant turned father. And a toddler who could probably bring the whole empire to its knees with a well-timed sneeze. God help us. Because soon the courts will find out. Soon the Empire will know that the Princess of Ilarion is no ordinary child. She's the granddaughter of Tylen Ilariondil of Nivali, one of the oldest elven bloodlines still breathing. We could try to hide it. Keep him tucked away, disguise his features and change his name. But when a tall, ethereal green-haired man starts wandering the palace gardens talking to the flowers and being annoyingly graceful, someone is bound to ask questions. And when they do, well, that's a problem for future US. We should probably find the right time to reveal his identity, I muttered, already bracing for the bureaucratic landslide and emotional fallout heading straight for me. Lavinia's POV. Today I woke up feeling warm. And not just the sleepy warm that comes from my big cozy bed with all my favorite fluffy pillows. No, this was a different kind of warm, like sunshine and magic and something sweet that tickled the tip of my nose. It made my toes wiggle under the blankets this morning. I feel something special. Now here I was already sitting in front of the mirror, swinging my legs while Nanny brushed my hair with that special comb that didn't hurt. My hair was being extra grumpy today, just like me. I wasn't happy. Not really. Not yet. But I had a feeling. That tingly feeling. The kind you get when you're about to meet someone extraordinary. Like a hero from a storybook or a fairy who grants wishes. Today I was going to meet an elf. A real elf who is also my grandfather. The ones with pointy ears and sparkly eyes. The ones from fairy tales. The ones who live in forests and talk to trees and ride sparkly deer or something. I didn't even know elves existed in this world. But I guess they do. Then again, this is a novel world. Anything can exist here. Even me. Princess, you seem happy today, Morella said softly, tying a ribbon in my hair. Yup. I'm so happy, I replied, kicking my feet. I see. I'm happy too, she said, smiling in the mirror. I see. I mumbled back, but my mind was already running ahead. Would he glow? Would he talk in riddles? Would he like me? I stared at my reflection, at the girl with golden hair and bright red eyes, her feet swinging as if they had somewhere important to go. My heart was doing little flips. Not the bad kind, but the kind you get before opening a present you weren't supposed to know about. At first, Lavinia, the Lavinia from the novel, was just the daughter of an emperor. A mere maid has given birth to her. A footnote. A villainous character born from nothing important. But who would have thought that the mere maid who gave birth to me wasn't a mere maid at all? She was the daughter of an elf. And not just any elf. One of the oldest, most mysterious ones in the Empire, apparently. Which made me quarter elf? I don't know, but the math wasn't as important as the fact that magic flowed in my blood. It felt surreal. Almost like I'd been reading someone else's story all along, only to realize it was mine. And today, finally, I was going to meet the part of my story that had been missing. My elf grandpa. So, I was ready to meet him. And then, are you ready? I turned around quickly. Papa? I blinked. Papa, why are you here? He raised a brow, then crouched down to my level. What do you mean why? How could I leave you alone with a stranger? I tilted my head. But he's my grandpa. Papa clicked his tongue and muttered something under his breath. Still a stranger. Oh, why was he making that annoying face again? You know, the one where his eyebrows scrunch like someone stole his dessert, and his mouth turns into a flat line like he just smelled something suspicious. Like he's jealous. Wait, was he actually jealous? Pfft. That's so silly. But maybe yes. Because this is the same Papa who almost banned the hand-kissing greeting because someone might kiss my hand one day. Seriously. He was one council meeting away from rewriting the entire Imperial etiquette book. If Marshmallow hadn't hatched from that egg, I'm pretty sure he would have gone through with it. Then suddenly, without warning, Papa scooped me up with both arms. Wah. Papa. I yelped, legs flailing. And just like that, I was dangling in the air again. So, here I go. Floating toddler mode. Activated. Listen, he began with that overly serious tone he uses when he's about to say something ridiculous. No matter what magic he shows you, glowing butterflies, floating flowers, singing acorns, you don't go near him. Excuse me? Does he think I'm a child? Which okay I am. But still. Singing acorns? I repeated, tilting my head. Elves are weird. You never know. I blinked. I was dumbfounded. Then he hugged me tight and started walking toward the waiting room, muttering, "Don't let him trick you with sparkles." Does he think I'm a crow who gets distracted by shiny things? Yes. Yes, she does. He's my grandpa, I reminded him sweetly. A stranger, Papa corrected flatly. An elf, I whispered back like it was a secret password. Papa narrowed his eyes. Even worse. Elves are charming and sneaky and shiny. You can't trust someone with cheekbones that sharp. I stared at him. What? But he's cooler than you, I said with a tiny smirk. Papa stopped. He flinched. I think he actually gasped. He is not cooler than me. He looked so offended I had to cover my mouth to stop from laughing. He was pouting. The mighty, scary emperor of Valerian, pouting like a sulky baby bird. Hee. Teasing him is my new favorite hobby. And just like that we reached the waiting room doors, where the sunlight shimmered inside through the windows like something out of a fairy tale. Magic floated in the air, soft and golden, like the room itself was holding its breath. I knew it. He was on the other side. My elf grandpa. Waiting to meet me. While Papa tried very, very hard to pretend he wasn't already plotting to duel him with passive-aggressive comments and fatherly glares. The guards bowed to us and opened the door, and as we entered I saw him. My elf grandpa. He was pacing back and forth like he was trying to wear a path into the floor. His robes swished with every step, long and flowing and very green. So was his hair. And his eyes. Like, really green. I blinked. I think he's too green. Like a forest decided to become a person. Oh, whatever. He also looked way too young to be called grandpa. But then again I heard elves live a super long time. Maybe he's like 1,000 years old or something. Papa was still carrying me, one arm under my back and the other under my legs like I was some delicate royal pudding. Which I am, but still. I wiggled in his arms. Papa, put me down. At that moment the elf turned toward us. He must have heard my voice. His steps froze. And then, our eyes locked. His green eyes widened and something sparkled in them. Not magic, not exactly. It was something soft. Something warm. He looked at me like I was a miracle. Like I was something he never thought he'd get to see. I tilted my head, suddenly feeling shy, which was very rare for someone as amazing as me. Hi, I said quietly. His lips parted, but he didn't speak right away. He just looked at me. Like he was trying to memorize my face. My hair. My eyes. Every little part of me. Papa, I whispered without looking away. You can put me down now. Papa didn't move. He was staring too, but not in the same way. His stare said, try anything funny and I'll vaporize you with imperial taxes and scary titles. I elbowed him gently. Papa. Finally, with a deep sigh that sounded like he was sending me into enemy territory, he set me down on the floor. My feet touched the ground. I stood up straight, smoothed my dress like a true lady, and took one bold step forward. He didn't move. Like he couldn't believe I existed. His eyes were wide and soft and a little watery. Was he going to cry? No, I don't think elves cry. They probably shed dew or something dramatic like that. So he didn't move. Not even when I reached very close. Okay. Time to investigate. Step 1. Confirm elf status. He had shiny hair. Check that IT glowed like leaves after rain. Like he used enchanted conditioner or something. He already looked greenish. Check that if he stood in a forest I might lose him. Now for the final test. The ears. Where were they? His long, flowy, suspiciously perfect green hair covered the sides of his face, and I couldn't see the most important part. So I leaned forward. Pose. Inspecting mode. Activated. I tiptoed slightly and craned my neck to peek through the curtain of hair. Still nothing. Then he suddenly swept his hair back behind his shoulder, like he understood I was inspecting him. And there was his ear. Pointy. Very pointy. I gasped. My eyes sparkled like treasure. Wow. He blinked again. I really have an elf grandpa. I said it out loud this time. Then I sighed in relief. Thank God he's not some scammer. There was a pause. Oops. I think I blurted that out loud. Wow. He blinked again. I really have an elf grandpa. I said it out loud this time. Then I sighed in relief. Thank God he's not some scammer. Oops. I blurted that out loud. My cheeks flushed a hot red and I could feel the awkwardness creeping in like a shadow. Why did I say that out loud? Thalian, my elf grandpa. blinked at me, his eyes wide for a second before a soft chuckle escaped his lips. It was a deep sound like wind rustling through trees, mysterious, calming. And somehow it made me feel better. Then he knelt down slowly, one hand reaching out but not quite touching, as if afraid I might vanish if he came too close. I watched him, the way his ancient yet graceful movements seemed to slow time itself. There was a strength to him, a depth in his eyes that held centuries of secrets and stories. And as he looked at me, his granddaughter, his flesh and blood, something changed in his expression. His eyes, those stormy, wild eyes, softened and the faintest curve touched his lips. Not a full smile, not yet. Just the beginning of one. Like the first warm breeze after a long winter. "You're really here," he murmured, his voice so low and trembling I barely caught it. "Her child." He looked at me like he wasn't looking at me, but the reflection of someone. Maybe he was missing his daughter. The woman who gave birth to me, Sylvain, my birth mother. I looked up at him, at the man who was part of my mother's story, part of mine. I may not be emotionally connected to my birth mother, but it won't change the fact that she is my mother. So maybe I should say hi, right? Right? And with the softest voice I said, "Hi, Grandpa." His breath hitched and I saw it, just for a second. The shimmer of tears. He smiled, his hands trembling toward me, and then stopped, hovering midair like leaves caught in a gentle breeze. His voice, though soft, carried the weight of centuries. "Can I hug you, my dear?" Something fluttered in my chest. He had asked with such care, like he was afraid the moment would shatter if he moved too fast. Like I may vanish. I nodded. He smiled and he didn't rush. Then my elf grandpa knelt slowly, arms opening like the boughs of an old tree reaching for the sun, and gently, oh so gently, he wrapped them around me. Warmth. Real and steady. Not the kind that comes from sunlight or soft blankets, but the kind that blooms deep in your chest when you know someone is holding you not out of duty but out of love, just like Papa. He smelled faintly of forest rain and old paper, like magic in memory. His embrace was strong but not suffocating, like the kind that says, "I've missed you for so long and now that you're here I'm never letting go." I felt his body tremble as he pulled me closer, like he was the one breaking, not me. "I dreamed of this," he whispered into my hair. "Every night since I lost her. Since I found out about you, I dreamed of holding the child she never got to raise. And now you're here. Breathing. Beautiful just like her." I didn't know what to say, so I just held on tighter. Even if I didn't feel much about Sylvain, my birth mother, I could feel everything pouring out of Thalion. And for him maybe this was more than just a reunion. Maybe this was healing. Perhaps he was recovering. Then he gently pulled back just enough to look at me, cupping my cheeks with hands that were calloused yet careful, like a man who had held both swords and lullabies. "She would have loved you," he said at last, voice thick with emotion. "You have her fire in your eyes. And something more, something stronger." A silence settled over the room, not awkward but comfortable. Like the forest after rain, quiet, alive and full of promises. I didn't look at Papa, but I knew he was there. Watching. Silent. Not interfering. Maybe he was giving us space. Or maybe he was annoyed because I am now close to someone else. But for the first time, I really wanted to know. What did she feel, my mother, when she held me for the first time? Was she happy? Did she smile? Or did she cry? Curse me for the pain I brought? For being the reason she never got to live? I wonder how she really felt. Thalion must have seen something flicker in my eyes, because his thumbs brushed my cheeks again, a tender touch that said everything words couldn't. I got all the love in this world as Lavinia. I never missed her. I never asked for her. I never needed her. But what if? What would have happened if I really had a mother? Would she have smiled at me warmly? Sung me lullabies in a language I didn't know, soft and strange like a secret between us? Would she have scolded me when I was naughty? Kissed my scraped knees and told me I was brave even if I cried? Would she have braided my hair with little white flowers like the ones blooming outside the palace walls? Would I have curled into her lap during storms, hiding my face in her shoulder, safe? Would she have loved me the same way Papa does? Or in a way completely different? Would she have chosen dresses for me every day? I don't know. And maybe I'll never know. But for a second I let myself imagine it, and that tiny thought, that fragile dream, I blurted, "I want Mama." And then, the room went too quiet. Was it something I said? Before I could think more, suddenly Papa grabbed me in his arms, his hold firm but gentle, like he was trying to shield me from the very thought I'd just spoken. Enough, Papa said, his voice almost stern. We had enough for today. Your Majesty, now wait a minute. Thalion, my elf grandfather, exclaimed, tossing his long green braid over his shoulder like he was in some ancient elven shampoo commercial. You can't just take her away like that. She's my daughter. I can take her anywhere and anytime I want. Papa growled, his crimson eyes flashing. The usual calm emperor aura? Gone. Replaced with feral bear with crown mode. And she is my granddaughter, Thalion shot back, stepping forward dramatically, the sunlight glinting off his cloak like the forest itself was backing him up. Their eyes met. The glaring competition had begun. It was intense. Silent. Dangerous. I swear the temperature in the room dropped 3 degrees. Magic sizzled in the air. Swords of eye contact clashed in slow motion. Meanwhile, I sat in Papa's arms blinking rapidly because... Wait just 1 minute. Was this one of those cliché novel scenes? You know, the ones where 2 devastatingly attractive male leads fight over the poor, delicate heroine and she's like, no please don't fight over me? Was I the heroine? My heart skipped in excitement. Oh my stars. I'm living the trope. This is not a drill. My tiny fingers clutched Papa's collar dramatically as I tilted my head and thought, should I faint now or later? No, too much. I'm 3. Still, I gave my most sparkly-eyed innocent look, wondering who will win. The emperor or the elf? The overprotective dad or the dreamy forest grandpa? This was better than a tea party. Better than dessert. I had no idea I would be living this trope too. Papa huffed and turned to Thalion again, his eyes narrowing. You've only known her for 5 minutes and already you're trying to claim her? She's my blood. Thalion argued back, tossing his cloak behind him like he was about to recite a sonnet. You can't monopolize her. I'm not monopolizing her. I'm raising her. Well, maybe she needs elven cultural exposure. I'll buy her a tree. Thalion gasped. A tree? You think we're defined by foliage? I'm trying here, Papa muttered, clearly regretting everything. Meanwhile, I was now thoroughly invested. My eyes bounced between them like I was watching the final match of a fantasy chess tournament. 2 proud men, one imperial, one immortal, arguing like children over candy. Let's see who will win. But before I could even declare a winner, there was a soft knock on the door. The butler entered, carrying tea and snacks. Papa sighed, clearly exasperated, and said, "Let's have a seat." What? I thought, frustration bubbling up inside me. I wanted to see who would win. Damn it. I didn't even get to live out the trope fully. I slumped back into Papa's arms. The dream of dramatic, competing, good-looking men fighting for my attention shattered in a moment. This was not how it was supposed to go. Well, whatever, that's how I met my grandfather, who was a real elf. Pointy ears, centuries-old drama, foresty charm and all. My life might be strange. And sparkly. And just a little bit dramatic. But wow, it's so fun being me.